Good morning, we are from Ukraine. We are on our land and our factories continue killing the occupants. We tell you what is going on the front, in the regions, and how the whole world responds to the events in Ukraine. Before we go to the messages from the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, we shall show you several interesting things, how the world responds to the events in Ukraine. Please have my mic on. On the top you see how Emmanuel Macron is thinking how to protect the sky over Ukraine, and here you have, below you have Vitaly Klim, the head of Mykolaiv regional administration. His city is surrounded by Russian invaders, and he is thinking how to contact his people. This is the man who opened the window to Europe and the man who closed the window to Europe. We let some air in, that's enough. Anton Tymoshenko, a famous stand-up, says that all the people sent to Ukraine who study in military universities will have their credit automatically. Another point, the military unit was neutralized with a tractor brigade. You wanted to say tank brigade? No, tractor. Elite infantry brigade of Russia is now called 2x200. And I would like to add that at night near Kharkiv, our warriors killed the Lieutenant General of the Russian army. The Russian drone is here, and Ukrainian ladies with the bottle of something are trying to neutralize the most heavy objects in the world. You see the sun, neutron star, black hole, and something the Ukrainians have. This is the way the people in Halachina are watching how the warriors defeat the Russians, and they are crying because they cannot participate. Here the Russians are fed. Here is the way the situation we are going to have in several days, when ladies will know who is the ghost of Kiev. How do you trust the armed forces of Ukraine? I'm wearing my pajamas when I go to sleep. This is the question to the Ministry of Digital Transformation. One, will it be possible to operate Bayraktar 3D? They were working on our lands, now they are going to respond. The greatest army of the world could transform America into nuclear ash, but they didn't have time because they spent lots of time in one of the villages in Sumy region. The Ukrainians are trying to understand what is going on, full shirt or not. Our taxi drivers made up a column, a convoy. Are they tank drivers? No, they are taxi drivers. 9 days, 9,000. Let's wait for 1 more thousand. Here, it may be a big board for the next elections in Russia, in case they generally take place. Ukrainian post office, now I ask to excuse myself, they still cannot kill the helicopters. Now the workers of Ukrposhta need to fulfill a new task to shot down 5 planes, helicopters, etc. So now the load of post office is really high, and Chuck Norris, for 10 years we have been watching at funny pictures with him. Now Volodymyr Zelensky is ready to help him, and soon probably we shall have the TV series about Zelensky on Netflix. I hear how our stage directors laugh just behind us. This is the medicine we are going to have probably in our pharmacies, Arestovich. This is the way you look when 5 nuclear bombs are threatening you, but it means the Russians have 5 bombs less. And once again, Vitaly Kim, are you anxious? Are you afraid? I don't know. This is the person who is now everywhere. People who didn't know him at all now know his name, and now we may actually have the information from the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine about the situation, what the Russians actually get and how they are defeated. We have started the 13th day of heroic opposition of Ukrainian people to the Russian invasion. First of all, we would like to wish peace and calm and to congratulate on the 8th of March all Ukrainian women. The offensive of the Russians is going on, but they are slowed down, and the armed forces of Ukraine continue the defensive operation in the area of eastern and northern area. In Siversk direction, we have the heroic defense of Chernihiv. The defense of Kiev is continuing to defend the capital in several directions. In southern operational area, there is defensive operation along the state border, and we try to protect the seaside, and there are also some battles nearby Mykolaiv. In other areas, there is stabilization operation, and the territorial defense forces is performing their tasks. The aviation forces of Ukraine are successfully counter the airstrikes of the Russians. The air coverage of critical infrastructure of Ukraine is fine. The occupiers are demoralized and usually do looting and violate the international law regarding military conflicts. In Kharkiv, Sumy, Chernihiv and Kyiv region, in those areas which are temporarily occupied by Russian occupiers, there are lots of facts of robberies and violent actions against local residents. They break into civilian houses and try to arrange their positions nearby the civilian infrastructure. In Kherson and Mykolaiv region, which are also temporarily occupied by the Russians since the 24th of February, the occupiers are trying to use the units of psychological things, and they have established about 10 tactical groups which are responsible for propaganda work with the local residents. They try to intimidate the local population in some of the areas of the Crimea. And moreover, the FSB is also establishing certain groups to work with the population, in particular to identify resilience groups. But the fight is going on. Together we'll win. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Stanislav Bezushko, Irina Kapitan. We are back in the studio. And traditionally, from my personal story, Solovyov has disappeared from YouTube. He is the main propaganda person in the Russian Federation. His channel is blocked in YouTube, and his Sunday program on TV has disappeared. And who should be tributed for this? Mikhail Fedorov, who is the head of the Ministry of Digital Transformation. A good piece of news. Shari's channel is also blocked. More and more Russian channels are blocked. The other broadcasters are used. Continue the topic of Fedorov, Arestovich and Kim. I'm talking to different people in the evening, particularly with my colleagues and female colleagues. Well, Fedorov probably is discussed a bit less, but Arestovich and Kim are mainly the focus of attention. And actually, Arestovich is the top person regarding his talent of calming people down, probably, and Vitaly Kim as well. And actually, a couple of weeks ago, we didn't know this person, and now there are lots of subscribers of him in Facebook. So we have a new leader who actually was born metaphorically, on the conditions of war. Yesterday we had lots of guests here, and we decided to sum up what was said yesterday. The information from Vice Mayor of Lviv, Andriy Moskalenko. The amount of public transport has decreased. I'm talking about public transport, not private one, because private transport actually is growing. We have lots of people from other regions who came to Lviv. So regarding public transport, lots of buses are used for military operations. Moreover, they are used to transport people who come to the railway station in order to bring them to their locations and destinations. What is important? Підзамче railway station now is open to take the load of the main railway station, and also the city introduced special bus routes who just run in different locations of Lviv, because definitely people arrived during curfew hour and it's difficult to get to some districts of Lviv. In Підзамче they already got about 9,000 people. Yesterday there are two special facilities for displaced people or refugees. This is one of the colleges and Chodkevich's palace. So it is actually within walking distance, and still lots of people choose the central locations. And Andriy Moskalenko also said that they deliver people closer to the border in case the bus is available. The most important thing is now people also are brought to the regions. What we often hear from our viewers is that Lviv is overloaded, the railway station is overloaded, as well as private sector of accommodation, and civil and military administration responded to these, and now they think how to actually organize some other places nearby Lviv. Старий Червоноград, Трускавець, Яворів, Новояворівськ, and these towns are ready to welcome people. The most important thing is for the people who arrive not to stay, that they would like to stay in Lviv. And the neighboring regions are also ready. Lutsk stated that they have lots of places, and now the key task is to organize logistics in a very good way. For example, not to have Lviv as the final train destination, but probably the trains may go to Truskavets or even to those towns which are closer to the borders with our neighbors, because now, for example, there are lots of cars at the border with Poland. I kindly ask to prepare some comments about Ivano-Frankivsk and Chernivtsi. What is the situation with refugees there? Talking about people who cross the border at night, apart from watching Instagram and tracing certain public figures, I was looking through the foreign press, and Rzeczpospolita wrote that it should be very careful at the border. There are people who try to use the situation for their own benefit, and they ask the ladies, the Ukrainian ladies, to be very careful and not to get on the cars offering help, because there were cases these ladies being involved in some prostitution activity. So there are always people who are trying to make profit on war. So once again, I encourage you to be careful. There are special registration gates when you cross the border, so it's necessary to register there. It's necessary probably to put down the plate number of the car and send it to your relatives, or at least to see who the driver is, and if the person looks suspicious, probably do not sit in this car. We were a bit shocked with the figure delivered by Andriy Hodik about the checkpoints. There are more than 500, actually 540, only in the territory of Lviv region, and the majority of them, 400 actually, are non-authorized ones. It means in Lviv region we should have 130 checkpoints. Some of them are more like observational points, but what we were really impressed with, that the majority of these 400 non-authorized checkpoints are situated in Yavoriv district. So actually in Yavoriv district they have about 130, and from whom these checkpoints protect? From the Russian occupiers, or probably from the humanitarian aid coming from Poland? Because it's very difficult to go through these more than 130 checkpoints. It means plus 2 hours to the time only regarding Yavoriv area. So you lose about 4 hours. 4 hours during wartime is actually a lot. Yesterday we had also the coordinator of the humanitarian center in Arena Lviv. Anna Harris confirmed that it is really overloaded. There are lots of people. They ask people not to stay there for a long period of time. The displaced people come there. They are referred to the places where these people can spend the night. Well, there are some sleeping facilities there. They give some snacks. People can sleep on carry mats on the floor, so they make some sandwiches. Still, they need more things to make some snacks for these people. Also, yesterday we had a psychologist. In case you would like to overcome your fear or panic, you may listen to this conversation in YouTube. There are very good recommendations there. The psychologist was Halina Derevyanka, and also we had Petro Chernik, who is the military expert. Summing up, we had to mobilize our efforts. We'll definitely win, but now the enemy is in wait. Lots of vehicles, lots of things have been distracted. Our warriors are well prepared to combat the Russian invasion, and Putin definitely is ready to make any provocations. And even here in western region of Ukraine, we may face some provocations. They will not stop at nothing, and there will be probably the breaking point, and we have to achieve about 70 or 80% when we have this final breaking point. Probably we need to withstand for about a week or more than a week in order to get to the point where there is no other way around. Now we have the strategic advantage. Yesterday I had a bit more time for social networks. I looked through Instagram. I may say that there are people who already say that, well, we're almost there, we are almost winning, and this is something that what actually Putin and the occupiers want, so we do not need to get relaxed. Yesterday, there were lots of questions about the Russian convoy staying at 25-kilometer distance from Kiev, and people are asking why it is not defeated. This is the column which is blocked. They cannot go forward, they cannot go back. So taking into account that they violate all the rules of movement, and the battalion and tactical groups do not, again, walk in the way they should, they block each other. So this is just the same. In case we we attack them, we give them some space for maneuver. The second point probably will, again, disperse our forces. So if they stand, if they are blocked, let it be. The moment they start moving, they will be defeated. That's very good that you are listening to us. There is Yehudin, the crossing point. Yesterday we already had 150 cars there and 150 people. Do not go only to Rava-Ruська, Шегині, Краківець. In Transcarpathian region, all the border crossing points are not loaded. The State Border Service of Ukraine in Western region has provided statistics regarding the situation at the border. And at 9 o'clock, 8th of March, by the way, today it's the 8th of March, and if you see, I have just read, if you see a man with flowers today in Lviv, it means they were presented with these flowers. I have seen two actually today. Coming back to the, well, I would like to specify the best present is coronation for the 8th of March, in direct and metaphorical meaning. We also have some other ones which destroy the enemy's vehicle in a very good way. So regarding Yehudin, no cars, no pedestrian no people for pedestrian crossings. Ustoluch, just 0. In Rava-Ruська, 150 cars. Hrushiv, 500 cars. So we see that people follow our recommendations. So now the situation has changed. Smilnica, 300 cars, 70 people. And our favorite Krakivets, 600 cars, 1,500 people. Shehini, 620 cars. Just follow the statistics of the State Border Service of Ukraine in Western region. See where you would like to go. Talking about other states, for example, the Slovak Republic, only 150 cars are in Uzhhorod border crossing point, border with Hungary. The situation is just the same. So Ukraine is the largest country in Europe. So if our logistics is more complicated, all the other countries are smaller. So if you go to Yehudin and if you think that you spend additional 2.5 hours and you go up the road, believe me, you'll save time just staying in the traffic jams in Shehini. So when you go through Yehudin, you'll go to Lublin and you may go to the west or to the north, and believe me, you'll save not just 1 or 2 hours and even 4 hours if you go through Yehudin. The road is good, road infrastructure is good. Only behind Chervonograd, the roads are not good. Try to keep to the edge, to the sideline on the road, in case your car is not high. Believe me, this is the recommendation from a driver. So Hungary, Romania border crossing points, and Moldova. Romania, the situation at the border is okay. There are now people for walking crossing point. Regarding Moldova, there are 4 pedestrian border crossing points, 0 cars, 0 people. Well, with Moldova the situation is different, but finalizing these statistics with refugees, more than 1.7 million people have gone abroad, according to the UN Agency on Refugees. More than 1 million went to Poland, about 200,000 to Hungary, 130,000 to Slovakia, 82,000 went to Moldova, about 80 to Romania, more than 50,000 people went to Russia, probably they were forced to do it, and the less, about 500 people went to Belarus, and several thousand people went to the other countries of the world. Let's have a look what is going in Чернівці and Ivano-Frankivsk region. If a person has not been registered anywhere and doesn't have any place to stay, this person goes to the center, to the coordination center. They are given all the data about bomb shelters and about accommodation, and immediately a person has a place to stay. All places, accommodation places, provide some food to the displaced people. One category of people are transit people who go to Romania, and those displaced people who would like to find some shelter in Bukovina region, and there are 24,000 people. Out of them, there are 7,500 kids, and we also know that the region is ready to welcome, to host 17,000 displaced people. There are different types of clubs organized for kids. There is also psychological support given. Since tomorrow, the displaced people who stay in Bukovina region now will be given some jobs. There are lots of requests how this area is going to work. So far, we do not know whether this will be some communal, municipal enterprises, or the jobs will be found through employment center. Back in the studio, we have our first guest today. This is Maria Petryshin, the head of the first veteran space rehab. Now, Maria is actually the head of the Warriors House in Lviv. Glory to Ukraine. Hello, Maria. Tell us what you are doing, because we see some photos from the Palace of Warrior, and we understand that now it is the Center of Psychological, Humanitarian Support, probably something else. So what you are doing, what do you need? We follow the request. Every day we get about 300 calls. Now we have the call center that is operating. We have our own hotline, and it means now we have better picture what people need. Definitely we have the majority of requests regarding ammunition, and just when I was going to the studio, I got a call from one of the military units, and now they take some humanitarian aid in Copernicus 17, and now they state, well, we need ammunition. This is the critical point, the crucial point right now. What are we doing? We are doing everything on the basis of the requests we have. So we thought that we would probably work as logistics center, but now we understand that lots of people trust us, and we started working on humanitarian aid as well. So we have set up 2 warehouses and special logistics system, which is working on inventory of humanitarian aid. We need to understand what we get, what we give, who are the receivers. So now we just changed our format, and our 2 main areas are humanitarian aid in special hot points, and we sent ammunition to our military people. Talking about ammunition, this is the 12th day. We are hearing that what is needed is the bulletproof vest, the helmet, and we understand that all the logistics centers try to find their partners abroad, and even the private people are trying to find certain acquaintances and contacts abroad. Do you have any contacts with your foreign partners in foreign states who can accelerate the process? Well, food is one thing, but bulletproof vests and ammunition is something that cannot wait. Well, the inventory system is slightly different here, and civil people probably cannot fully deal with the bulletproof vest, etc. The mechanisms are different, but we send signals and information to our partners. The level of communication is different. Yesterday, I met the delegation from Israel. They came to us, and vice mayor of one of the twin cities came to Lviv, and we also held negotiations about the humanitarian aid, and we got some help from Irina Grimak, and we came into contact with the ambassador of Ukraine to Israel, and there will be a humanitarian aid delivered by 14 planes. Medical part is also very important. Tourniquets is something that are needed. Blood-stopping medications. This is something we need now. Well, we get actually 20 and we were delivering them. Well, I can confirm that several people of my acquaintances deal with medications, something that is needed in order to send it to the front line. So everybody is trying to find it. And yesterday I had a talk with my acquaintance who's in Poland now, and she's searching for medications there. And she says, well, it's unreal to find the medications, the tourniquets, the pharmacies are just empty. And this is really something we lack. Talking about humanitarian aid for displaced people, we mainly had humanitarian headquarters in Copernicus 17. We have Arena Lviv. Can private people who came to Lviv, I mean the families or somebody else, go to you? For example, somebody who is at loss and who come to you and may ask for help. Yes, we have such people. People give us calls at 3 a.m. and state, where shall we go? We are in the center of the city. Well, we may welcome them till morning. We check the documents. Everything is well organized. We have our security people there, and we are very responsible about it.
Of course, we do provide assistance on one-off occasions, but we also tightly cooperate with the humanitarian hubs. But who ensures all the logistics? Do your people go there to the east? Well, you do understand that the Warriors house is not really fully staffed. We have only 4 people, and they cannot really do everything. But right now we have 50 volunteers, permanent volunteers. These are those people that work at warehouses, they unload trucks, and this is something that we need to receive, account for. We have a team of logistic people. They helped us create a system and take inventory of things. We have a center that is fully staffed. We have people on duty. We have people who deliver food for us. So these people work almost 24/7, non-stop. But if we are healthy, we will be able to support others. So on a daily basis, we have 30 people engaged, and if necessary, we can also have up to 50 people. Yesterday, we had a conversation with one of our service members. He's in one of the hotspots right now, and he mentioned something very important about humanitarian aid. So his request is that people pick a specific military unit that they will be in permanent contact with, or maybe they receive a specific list of things necessary. So do you receive such requests from specific military units? Do you take control of all these requests and what exactly is needed in each military unit? Definitely we receive a request and all the escorting documents. Yesterday we sent some loads to Sumy, Кривий Ріг, Біла Церква. We are inundated with requests right now, but of course we identify the authors of these requests. We want to make sure that these are legitimate people. Maybe these are service members or these are volunteers. So we do double check and verify information to make sure that these loads will be forwarded to the right locations. Well, I can see that Vladislav is shooting some weird looks at me because I don't really allow him to ask a question. But anyway, in Bila Cerkva we had a lot of military service members that fought for our freedom back in 2014. I'm sure that you are in perpetual communications with them. What do they say? What is their condition? Well, we are supportive of one another. The front line is paramount, but the home front is crucial as well. And I will be frank with you, I can go to Facebook at night or in the morning. I don't even have enough time to describe everything. I don't even have enough time to have my meals. But whenever I call them, I always start by asking, just tell me how you are doing. Everything is great. We are positively charged. We are doing this and that. And this is something that raises your spirits as well, because we are also susceptible to burnout, but everything is being done for our common victory. So we are supporting them here and they are supporting us there. It's a two-way street, and together we create this big picture, and each of us is a big puzzle, is a small puzzle or a small piece in this big picture. I'm really sorry. I just have some special feelings towards the Warriors House, so that's why I wanted to ask more questions. What about working with the moms, sisters, wives, telephone consultations in the city of Lviv, or maybe there's some support in other regions as well, only over the phone or some other channels? Well, we do receive a lot of requests for psychological support. We have a team of crisis psychologists, but to be honest, the bulk of people cope themselves, and I don't really want to go into details right now. The scariest thing about the war is loss, and it's a long process. A lot of people cope with losses themselves. 80% of people are tuned like that, or set up like that. We can tap into our inner resources, but whenever people come for help, we refer them to psychologists that work with PTSD, anxiety disorders. So we do have people who can provide psychological support if necessary. I didn't talk to them, I will be honest with them, but I know that Mikhailo Paluha and his team are doing a great job. They are actively engaged. They are part and parcel of all these processes. So as you can see, the work is ongoing on multiple fronts. They are open. Well, these are covered topics, points in military facilities. Yesterday we had Helena Derevyanko. She also supports the Warriors House with psychological assistance, and she promised that she would provide us with phone numbers, and based on these phone numbers we will put together infographics. So did I get it right that anyone can call and receive psychological support? Refugees, IDPs, any other people who find themselves in Lviv and they are experiencing a psychological crisis, right? Exactly. To be honest, I feel a little bit nostalgic because I'm a psychologist by education, and I miss my clients, and whenever I read about it, I really want to lend a helping hand, but physically I don't really have any time left on my hands. But I really hope that when this war is over, I will be go to veer back to my favorite job. But we are not selective about providing assistance. Whoever calls, even if it's a child, we are ready to offer. And you can be a refugee, you can be an UNDP, you can be a Lviv resident, you can be a military service member, so everyone will receive this help. We also had Lana Mitsko from the Cultural Arts Center that was transformed into a hub. I think that multiple cultural institutions serve as hubs right now. So I asked them what else they needed, and she said, well, cookies, tea, coffee, this is something that we will never say no to. So what are some of the urgent needs of the Warriors House? Maybe some additional human resources, vareniki dumplings, cabbage rolls, tea, coffee, cookies, because we have a multitude of people who are ready to help, and they don't really know how to do that. Ammo. This is something that we need most. I mean, we can handle without many other things, but this is our top priority. But in terms of some minor things, we would be very happy if someone agreed to make lunches for us, because we have a large team. We have people operating at warehouses, so a team of 30 people. So if someone could offer us lunches, we would be very grateful. Well, we have a to-do list. Korolenka 1A, Warriors House. This is the name of this institution. They have a large-scale command post right now. They have the Warriors House and some veterans organizations. All these institutions joined their forces to support our military service members. Ms. Petryshin is the acting head of this house, while the director himself engages in some other important matters. Thank you for coming here, and I really hope that we will have some time and opportunity to visit you at the Warriors House. Some info from the Lviv Regional Military Administration. As of the morning of the 8th of March, we have some injured people in our military hospitals. Everyone receives high-quality medical aid. Yesterday, 2 military service members were admitted in severe condition, but today they will be labeled as averagely injured. And the military hospitals are equipped with everything needed. There are no urgent needs. So a big request to everyone, do not spread any fake information on the needs of the hospital, because we receive this information from the horse's mouth. Some additional details on the Ukraine-Moldova border. Yesterday, March the 7th, Mogilів-Podilsky, a group of 9 people were detained. They tried to illegally cross the state border. 8 Ukrainian citizens and 1 Moldovan citizen. They tried to use a boat to travel to the neighboring country. All the men were detained, and these men fled the country not to be drafted into the army. And the son and the grandson of Sofia Rotaru were one of the detainees. She lives in Russia now, by the way. Some additional info on the fire in Zhytomyr Oblast, where an oil depot was on fire. As for SASU updates, this fire was suppressed at 6:15 in the morning. At night time, the outskirts of Kyiv were under attack. Starokonstantinov in particular. There were some fierce fights in Irpin, in Makarov, in the vicinity of Hostomel. There were the movements of adversary vehicles. As for Sumy, some people died, unfortunately, including children, and we will hear more from Ms. Irina Vereshchuk, the Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine. Dear Ukrainians, today we will open a humanitarian corridor for the city of Sumy. This fact was officially approved by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation in their relevant letter to the International Red Cross Committee. So the Red Cross has this confirmation, and we as well as one of the parties. The route for the humanitarian corridor is just one for evacuation: Sumy, Golubivka, Lokhvitsa, Lubny, Poltava. No other routes were agreed upon. We have already received some information that the Russian party will try to disrupt the humanitarian corridors because they will try to force people to take a different route, a dangerous one and unagreed on one. We want to call on the Russian side not to resort to manipulations and to deliver on their promises that are confirmed in written form. We're talking about evacuating people from Sumy to Poltava, evacuation of civilians, including some foreign students, in particular citizens of India and China. This humanitarian corridor will be used to supply humanitarian aid to Sumy, food products and much-needed medications. The Ukrainian side is ready to secure the entire route of the humanitarian corridor, and we notified the International Red Cross Committee about our readiness. We agreed on the beginning of ceasefire at 9 a.m. Kyiv time. We announced the ceasefire period. The time frame for the humanitarian corridor is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Along the entire route, all the obstacles should be removed. It's important for people that will be evacuated from Sumy and for humanitarian trucks moving towards Sumy. Lohvitsa, Andriashenka, Rudny, Nedrigaliv, Sumy. So this will be the route for humanitarian trucks. It's very important to make sure that we also have public information systems along the route. It is agreed upon that at 10 a.m. the first convoy will depart from Sumy, and the civilians can also use this route to evacuate in private vehicles. We provided the Red Cross and the Russian side with the routes for humanitarian corridors. Volnovakha, Zaporizhia, in Kharkiv and Kharkiv region in the direction of Western Ukraine. We want to call on Russia to agree upon the predefined routes and inform about it the International Red Cross Committee. And we also call upon Russia to ensure ceasefire along these routes. Do not trust the unofficial sources of information. Do not trust any messages that you receive from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. Trust the Ukrainian authorities. Read and listen to official Ukrainian media. Please listen in. The World Bank has already offered upwards of 700 million USD for Ukraine, and the explanatory note envisages that this aid will allow the Ukrainian government to provide the Ukrainian citizens with critical services. Through this aid, the Ukrainian government will be able to continue paying wages and social allowances to the Ukrainian population. The European Union also stated that Belarus should be brought to justice for their actions in Ukraine. The EU statement mentions that Belarus is a co-aggressor in Ukraine, and as per the statement propagated by the European Union during a special meeting of the OSCE Permanent Council, Belarus is fully liable for lost lives, destruction, and damage. And in this statement, the European Union demands that the Russian Federation halts military actions, withdraw troops, and honor the territorial integrity of Ukraine. I know that you like enlisting numbers, but I will do it this time. I will make comments. All right. So 12,000 people. These are human losses by Russia. 303 tanks. I'm not a military expert, but when I hear 303 tanks, it's unfathomable. Well, these are huge losses because, I mean, but we need to compare them with the capacity. Together with Vladislav, we always argue on air what happens to these tanks. I mean, 303 tanks, 1,036 combat armored vehicles, 120 artillery systems, 56 multiple rocket launcher systems, 27 air defense systems, 48 aircraft, 80 helicopters, 474 units of automotive equipment, multiple naval vessels, 50 fuel tanks, and 7 UAVs. Well, more tank fuels now, because I can see that another tank convoy was destroyed recently. Well, all these data are to be specified because in the midst of hostilities, it's very difficult to do math. Well, with this convoy, there's a very funny story. This convoy that was to be destroyed decided to bypass via a swamp, and they got stuck there. Well, this is something that was obvious since the outbreak of the invasion. And we also talked about some other losses in the vicinity of Kherson. These numbers were incorporated into the stats as well. And there's another statement that is very comforting to me. I follow all sorts of idiots globally, like Mr. Yanukovych, and he addressed Mr. Zelensky. So Mr. Yanukovych, in a very fatherly manner, addressed Mr. Zelensky. His address was published by RIA Noviny. So what did he say? He says to Zelensky that in a very presidential and even fatherly manner, he wants to address Mr. Zelensky, and I will quote right now because I don't want to be lost in this idiocy. I do understand that you have multiple advisors, but you have to stop this carnage at any price and reach a peace agreement. This is something that people in Ukraine, Donbass, and Russia are waiting for, and the Ukrainian people and the Western partners will be grateful to you. Well, we will be grateful if Mr. Yanukovych shuts up and doesn't tell the president of Ukraine what to do and how to conduct himself. Well, unfortunately, this person used to be our president, but onto some good news. This is the news that demonstrates that our army and our command are smart. Yesterday, Mr. Zelensky decided to recall the Ukrainian peacekeeping troops from other countries. So in the near future, we will have a lot of seasoned service members back. They know how to fight. They know how to work with the population. They know how to organize all the military and logistic processes. So they will act as a robust reinforcement for our armed forces. And I guess they will be brought back to Ukraine because now we have foreign military as well. We have this international legion, and we need to have people who are fluent in languages, who know how to communicate with foreign service members. So they are much needed in Ukraine right now, and therefore they will be brought back from other countries. I really hope that the UN will not have any objections. I'm sure about it. Every morning, we also provide you with updates on different services and institutions, quote unquote. Well, we are doing everything live. There's no rewriting of text. Well, but who wrote that? You need to mention the special services, the social security service, everything is fine. Sasso 5 fires, some grass fires, no one was injured. Has nothing to do with the war. There's a comment, but I guess that this comment will be mentioned later. As for the police, no updates yet. The police is overloaded. They receive thousands and thousands of requests. But grass fires, honestly, I mean, it's not enough for you to have war. You decided to burn some grass. So, I mean, how come that we have some grass fires? We want to create a special atmosphere here as well. We have another guest, but before that, we will watch Mr. Шкарлет, the Minister of Education and Science, and we will hear from him. To protect all the participants in the educational process. On the 25th of February 2022, the Ministry of Education and Science recommended that all educational institutions go on holiday, but this is day 12 of the war. Hostilities persist, and our main task is to save the lives of each and every citizen. At the same time, we can see that in some regions of Ukraine, the situation is quite peaceful and calm, and we need to fulfill the right of people to education. So the Ministry of Science Education came up with some recommendations. As for kindergartens, we recommend that they terminate the educational process on a temporary basis because we have air raid alerts on and off in all the regions of Ukraine. And in this context, there are two aspects that we would like to offer to educational institutions. So we recommend that the educational process be terminated on a temporary basis, or remote or online education upon agreement with their military administrations. As for children among IDPs and refugees, or those people who were evacuated because of the Russian aggression, these children can still go to school, either offline or online, based on the request of their parents. But at the same time, IDP children can go to school at their temporary place of residence, but once again, based on the petition of one of the parents. If schools decide to go online, they can use some online training materials. We have multiple regional platforms and national platforms, and we have details on our website. We recommend that people with special educational needs be paid due attention to. We have special educators and special pedagogues that work in special educational institutions. And to respect the right of children with disabilities to education, we need to form special groups. We need to publish special training materials for them. We need to utilize Viber, Telegram, WhatsApp for educational purposes, online platforms, Skype conferences, telephone conversations, so teachers can use any available channel of communication for educational purposes. The Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine wants to draw everyone's attention to the necessity for psychological support. A number of training materials have already been published on our website, and we will continue doing so. So you will find video materials that can be used to provide psychological support to children. We have a special category of educational institutions, VET schools. We believe that the theoretical part of training at VET schools can be taught online without physical visits of schools. As for practical training at VET schools, if it's not possible to do it offline on the premises of VET schools, online training can also be used, for example, virtual labs. If the practical part of training at VET schools cannot be done online, we suggest that it be moved to after the war. As for first year and second year students of VET schools, practical training can be postponed until next year. As for colleges and lyceums, we also recommend that they resume the training process depending on the security situation in their regions. Once again, you can use either remote learning or mixed learning. At the same time, our recommendation implies developing individuals, calendars and schedules, especially for those students that are serving in the army right now, would participate in territorial defense units. We suggest that changes be made in educational curricula and schedules, depending on the current situation and depending on the number of students in the class. Back to the studio, we have a new guest, Mr. Oleg Paska, the director of the Education and Science Department of the Lviv Regional Military Administration. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. Well, we now have lots of people who stay with their kids at home. So what is the situation at school, at kindergartens, regarding the people who have come from other regions? Well, the matter is that we have lots of people who now reside in the educational facilities. Before we had 5,000 people, now it is more than 7,000 people. And that is why some educational facilities won't be able to resume physical educational process. Now we try to prepare this remote platform. We have started volunteer remote school. Yesterday we had a meeting with teachers who volunteered to teach pupils in such a remote school. Tomorrow we'll start compiling lists of pupils who will participate in this remote school. It means that a pupil will be able to join this remote school, and there will be separate hours for online consultations. This is totally different way of learning, for example, in comparison with online video classes. And also we would like to welcome those pupils who are abroad. Here we work with the so-called Diaspora Institute of Lviv Polytechnic. It will start on next Monday, and it will be for the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th and 11th graders. And now we try to upload the platform with different tasks and classes. So as far as I have understood, there will be classes there. There will be links to these lessons, and everybody will be able to go to this lesson, go through the lesson. What about the marks? The marks will be put. There will be some electronic journals, but we need the lists of pupils and the headmasters of schools. Some of them already know how to do it, so they have to upload the lists of pupils who stay in their territory, who have left the temporarily occupied territories. All these kids have a chance to study. Well, it is possible to enter the platform using your computer, smartphone, or tablet. There will be classes up to 30 pupils in each, and they will be able to communicate. So since Monday, it will be for 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. You have to follow our website, and you have to see the links. But the first thing you should do is to go to the nearest school, and if you don't know which one is close to you, you may probably go to our website, the website of our department, or you can write to our email, and we'll try to understand what school will be the closest for you. So now there will be some collaboration, right? So let's take, for example, school number 30 of Lviv. So the kids who studied at that school will be able to use the platform.
the kids who went abroad also will have the access, and the displaced pupils also will have access to this platform according to the lists. But those schools who have already worked with some other platforms and which were functioning quite fine actually do not need to join the process because it will reduce the load. So probably the majority of Lviv schools will work with those platforms they have already been using. All the others will be able to work with our remote learning. So Google Classroom, Zoom, those that were used during the pandemic. I think that the platform in question will enable lots of pupils to get the knowledge they need. The worst situation is when parents are volunteering, they try to assist the army, and kids are unattended. And this is the serious issue, the potential loss for the economy of Ukraine and for children. So our primary task is to provide opportunities for kids to study. What about teachers? Lots of displaced teachers now are in Lviv. Well, actually, we do not have the list of teachers who arrived to Lviv. Our primary task was to give accommodation and to somehow start remote learning process. Though right now we invite everybody who would like to help us, particularly those who worked with Moodle platform, we invite everybody to participate and work with the platform. So if you can do it, I encourage the teachers to inform the department and will engage you into this volunteer movement and this distance learning. Well, do you have any understanding how these people who now stay in educational facilities, so for how long they are going to stay there? What will be the period of time they stay? Well, the number of people is growing, though during recent week we see a tendency that people are on transit and they go to, for example, the European Union. Last week, for example, 106 kids were supposed to come here, but we got the information that they changed their decision and they would go to Poland. So probably we still need some time because some people won't be able to come back, their houses are already ruined. So for some period of time, probably for half a year, we should think how people should be provided with accommodation here for them to be able to live in Lviv. Those people who now go to these educational facilities, how the whole process is going on. If we need something, the Department of Education goes to the humanitarian headquarters and they supply us with food. Our cooks from our colleges and vacational facilities cook food for the displaced people. The key issue is the products, the food products themselves. So I would like to thank our educators for everything they do. And I know that the parents are also engaged because they understand how important it is to provide some minimum food. Very important is the position of parents regarding education. So I kindly ask you to think how your child can become part of the educational process since Monday. Well, the children are under stress. This is definitely huge psychological loads for the kids. Therefore, in order to distract them, we should provide them opportunities for education. And we also joined one of the educational platforms, and the first question was, if there is an alert, what should be done? Well, Moodle, our distant learning school, enables you to join anytime during the day. So a child may work with the material at any time. And my kids are watching me on YouTube. So mind that if it is alert, you just pause the platform and then you come back to the material. Well, what about physical, offline education? We do understand the alert, for example, Drohobych, Novoyavorivsk. Well, this is a good question. Tomorrow we communicate online with every school, every district, and we try to clear out what kind of format they support. If we are talking about Turkey territorial community, which are located very close to the border, why won't they resume the offline educational process? But in case they have refugees or displaced people there, definitely they cannot do it. But they may, for example, adopt the hybrid format. But we think that some schools really will resume offline studying. There is a category of orphans who were brought to Lviv. Where are they accommodated? Regarding orphans, orphan children, this category is actually protected 100%. They are fed, they do not need any volunteer support. And it's good that Lviv region still have all these facilities operating, and now in some facilities the educational process is going on for kids to be able to engage into something. There are volunteers who organize different clubs there because these children stay there 24/7. Now we have about 500 people. We had the last group who came from Kharkiv region, who came from sport facilities, from boarding houses, and tomorrow we expect children from Zaporizhia. We are impressed with the photos at the border, for example, when there is a child who is lost, the child who are crying. Were there any cases in Lviv region that the child got lost? And in case there are such cases, well, what should be the response? Well, we didn't have these cases. Our department doesn't have any opportunities to find such kids. The first thing you should do is to go to the police. Okay, school is one category. What about universities? Well, the dormitories of universities now also work as centers for accommodation of displaced people. It will be impossible to fully resume offline educational process, but it may be hybrid format. Some students who are from other regions won't be able to stay in the rooms of dorms, and therefore we decided that every university has to analyze what is happening to their students. In case it is possible to introduce offline, they will do it. In case it is not, there will be online studies. Well, what about the duration? Usually the educational process ends at the end of March. What about the academic year? According to the legislation, the academic year should end till the 1st of July, and probably the Supreme Council should prolong the academic year officially. Yesterday we discussed the situation with our colleagues, and now there are such questions. Probably the children should repeat the year. No, I don't think it's a good way out. Probably we should do it in the following way. We can compress the curriculum since the 1st of September. Do you remember the first year of the pandemic, when it started in March, and particularly the 9th and the 10th forms? The teachers just transferred some parts of material for the beginning of the next year, for September. So they managed to deal with it. We can do the same right now. but it's necessary to have a targeted approach, how the curriculum should be covered in such a way not to decrease the amount of knowledge worked on. I know, and we partially discussed it, because definitely not all people are watching us. The entrance exams, the school living exams, what is the situation? I already saw happy faces in TikTok while everything is cancelled. Independent graduation exams have been postponed due to military actions, but we'll come back to this point, and there will be no other mechanisms of entering higher educational establishment just to prevent corruption. So all those who are happy about the exams being cancelled, you are mistaken. Please sit down and study. In Lviv, we have very powerful, very strong IT community. Have you had any proposals how to organize online education? We cooperate with the Institute of Psychology and Law of Lviv Polytechnic, and the second is the Institute of Education and Culture. So the educators are involved and the IT staff is involved. Following the topic, during the first pandemic months, the IT staff said, so we have such a situation, probably let's create some university courses. For example, in physics, nothing is going to change in the nearest couple of years. And for example, if we arrange the course, this will be available, and the same may be done for high school. For example, at schools, the courses will be created and the pupils may cover them themselves. Well, this remote school, which we are trying to create, will be the education of new generation. Every pupil will be able to have his or her own schedule. This will be more flexible approach, and the pupils who are fast regarding studying will be able to study, to have in-depth knowledge. And both the pandemic and this war encourages us to do something new. Last year, we covered 100 schools. The year before, it was even less. So now we have to accelerate the process. It means in some bad situation, we may have something good. We'd better not have this bad situation. Well, you've said that several teachers came and they should be employed. Well, definitely the teachers who come here are employed, and they brought children and they have to take after their kids. Therefore, they work in our educational establishments. Yesterday, we talked to Natalia Pipa, who also deals with some educational issues, and we asked about remuneration, about salaries. So the teachers are employed. What about salaries? Will it be 100% of their income or 70%? Now the schools are on holidays. The salaries are according to tariffication, to the tariffs. But when the holidays are over, it will be just the same. Let's hope we'll be able to deal with the process. Thank you. It was Oleg Paska, head of Educational and Science Department of Lviv Military and Civil Administration. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes. We have our own tradition. We finish the day and we start the day with some sport events. Lviv female handball team represents Lviv region at the international level. So now some information about them, what they are doing. War makes friends among former enemies. The champions of Ukraine in handball are now in the Czech Republic. They are welcomed by Hedonin team. who actually was defeated by our team. They offered us their gyms, their facilities. The way was quite complicated. 200 kilometers to Uzhhorod took us about 16 hours. Halichanka will play with Rukasa Gran Canaria club. The match will take place in the Czech Republic on the 26th of March. Now our task is to protect Ukraine at the sport arena, and we are going to defend our country in Europe. We continue preparation to the European matches. We are together with the Ukrainian people. Glory to Ukraine. The trainer of Halichanka stays in Lviv. Together with Halichanka are Tatiana Stefan and Oksana Ploshinska, while Vitaly is assisting his friends and relatives to get evacuated from the combat area. My mother, my sister with her husband came to me today. They were in the suburbs of Kyiv. It was a very difficult trip for my mom. She's over 80 years old. All the networks, all the nets from the goalposts were given to the volunteers for masking purposes. That was Vitaly Andronov, who is the main trainer of handball team. The majority of players are safe. They are playing for foreign clubs. Mariana Gladun is playing in Berlin, and my club is providing financial support. Also, they give buses who take people from the border and who bring people to Germany. My father is now in Ukraine and is defending Ukraine. We shall win. There is no other way out. This is our country. This is our motherland. We are united and we have freedom that nobody is going to take away from us. The European Handball Federation has withdrawn the Russian clubs from the European tournaments. I think now it will be a very interesting championship. Russia against Belarus. Let them compete. They probably will have their own Olympic Games. And the National Guard were the fans of our team. Now it is the chance of our sport people to support our warriors. We are proud of you. Ukraine will win. Back in the studio, we have the information from Lviv police. What is happening during these 24 hours? The situation is under control. There were no emergency events on the 7th of March. The Lviv police units, together with other law enforcement authorities, the National Guard and other authorities, continue patrolling the streets of Lviv and other settlements in Lviv region. During the previous days, the same way, there are joint actions to counteract military threats, preventing of looting and plundering. Every day we have lots of displaced people arriving to Lviv from combat areas. Here these people get support. The guards the checkpoints, checks the cars and people's identities. There are special emergency services that receive messages about suspicious people, cars, certain signals or suspicious objects, as well as different violations of law. There were 1,700 such messages processed by the police. The number of messages has reduced, but in case you cannot give a call to special emergency lines, now on the screen you see some other numbers you may give a call to in case the emergency numbers are overloaded. You may also give a call to hotline 112. We see more and more people leaving Ukraine. This is 1.7 million people people. More than 1 million went to Poland. The UN Refugee Agency is giving their own statistics. So they state that actually 1,027,000 people went to Poland. More than 180,000 people went to Hungary. 130,000 people went to another country. More than 80,000 went to Moldova. Talking about Russia, 50,000 people went there. And, okay, let them go there. The least number of people went to Belarus, 406 persons, and 183,000 went to other European countries. UN does not specify the countries. There is also some information from Sumy. We talked with Oleg Paska about education, about students. Due to blocking evacuation from the city, more than 2,000 foreign students got stuck in Sumy from different countries of the world. This is the information from Lyudmila Denisova. She is saying these are students from India, China, Turkey, Nigeria. There are students from the Middle East countries, Asian countries, Africa, Singapore, Saudi Arabia. And according to her, these countries address Russia to organize the humanitarian corridor and for them to be able to take their students, but definitely the Russian occupiers do not respond, and there are no corridors for the students in the same way as there are no corridors for our civilians. So, good news. Kirill Tymoshenko informed that there is green corridor in Sumy and there is the fast evacuation stage going on. Mihailo Podolyak, the counselor of the presidential office, stated that civilians are evacuated from Sumy and the humanitarian cargo are brought in. That's good news because there were several attempts in other cities and they failed. I always recommend that you should take your emotions from Facebook and coordinate your posts with other law enforcement authorities. Some very emotional posts were used by Russians as fakes, and now the Russian people just state that these are Ukrainian forces that blocked 2,000 students in Sumy. So this is an example how the information may be used as fake information. Please, I kindly recommend that you work with information in a way that is done by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in a very clear and calm, quiet way. Yes, it is used by Russians. So Ukrainians actually refused to go in Russian buses. The Ukrainian people refused to go to the Russian territory in order to become the live shield for those Russian adversaries who wanted to advance on the territory of Ukraine. We continue the topic of good communication. The armed forces of Ukraine still give us positive news. The new rating of the Army of the World, top 10, US number 1, China number 2, number 4 Kyiv, number 5 Kharkiv, number 5 Sumy, number 6 Chernihiv, number 7 British forces, number 8 Mykolaiv, number 9 something else, and number 10 the Roma people with their tractor. There are new sanctions against Russia, according to the Strategic Center. Japan, Canada, and Australia introduced new sanctions against Russia. For example, Japan has banned bringing to Russia special equipment for oil processing industry. Also, they introduced both sanctions against people and companies of the Russian Federation and Belarus. Among the sanctioned people are Gennady Timchenko, Alisher Usmanov, Dmitro Peskov, and Ramzan Kadyrov. Canada imposed sanctions on Russian propaganda and officials, and Australia introduced some sanctions against high officials. And also yesterday the Prime Minister of Japan reminded Russia that the Kurila Islands belong to Japan. This is not the end, and they would like to have them back. This is very good information. Why? Because we understand that the Russians will not deploy their forces that are in the Far East. One more information from those people who work with information in a very good way. This is Vice Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Halina Malik.
This is day 12 of the war. This is day 12 of the powerful resistance, the resistance that the enemy did not resist, the impressive resistance. The second army of the world, as they dub themselves, is incurring enormous losses, and they cannot achieve their goals. So if we stopped the second largest and powerful army, then we are the first one. So we have demonstrated that we know how to fight, we know how to supply our army, we know how to galvanize into action our volunteers. Pay attention to the fact that just in several days we have put together territorial defense, voluntary units. We have a robust volunteering movement. Each and every citizen is doing everything for the sake of our victory. There's no chaos whatsoever. It's true indeed that our fight is exhausting and we have some losses as well, but the price of victory is high. Our society is as robust and solid as our army is. In the past several days, we have demonstrated to the entire world, do not come here, otherwise you will be killed. Now our common task is to continue with these efforts. We have to be a solid home front for our army, because we need to do that to honor those people who have already perished for Ukraine. We are strong, we are united, and we will win. Back to the studio of the Перший Західний TV channel, we continue observing the latest developments and updates. You have already heard the updated info from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The enemy has slowed down. FSB forces are in action as well. One of the statements pertains to Kadyrov and his mercenaries, that they might attack Kyiv. I mean, what's this thing with Kadyrov and Kyiv? Because earlier there was information about them preparing an assassination of Mr. Zelensky. Well, as for the Russian Guard and the Russian Oman, they are trained to kill people and beat people on the streets. But why Kadyrov? Because Kadyrov officers over the past 3 to 5 years have been trained for urban fighting. So this is something that they did in Chechnya. They know how to clear cities. So if Kadyrov officers come, they will start clearing all streets, all buildings. It's a formidable task. If you think that it's easy, it's not. Like, for example, one acquaintance of mine lived in a 9-story building, and originally he had a bulletproof vest on, a helmet on, some other gear, but by the time he was down, he threw everything off. So you have a 9-story building, you have 9 stories, you have multiple apartments. So to clear that building, you have to go to each cranny and nook. The Kadyrov officers now know how to do that. Why Kyiv? Because when they were found in forests and on highways, they were easily decimated. So the plan ostensibly is that there will be some forces operating in the forests and on highways, while Kadyrov officers will be clearing Kyiv. But Kadyrov officers are the only ones that can be strong rivals for us in cities. And FSB and some other security forces don't really care about Kadyrov officers. So basically, they can even resolve their internal problem this way. we have this stereotype of the Chechen population knowing how to fight in forests, in mountains, but Kadyrov officers are not good at this. Urban fighting is their forte. And this is something that we saw earlier. So you have a tactical group first, and then you have Kadyrov officers. Some of them entered Kherson and Enerhodar, but the operational situation is different there. So this is something that they want to replicate in Kyiv. But did I get it right that Kyiv is surrounded by our forces right now? So they are in control of the situation. So as soon as the Kadyrov officers show up there, they will be destroyed as soon as possible, because as soon as these people enter a city, it will be very difficult to get rid of them. Exactly. They know how to fight in urban environment, because you have a guy who jumps out, fires a javelin. So of course you will not go there, because maybe a tank is there as well. So usually Russian service members don't really know how to fight in the urban environment. We had cases like that in the Donetsk region. The Kadyrov officers are a good asset for the Russian army, because they are skillful in urban fighting, but they are afraid. It's one thing to say something on TikTok, but it's something different to fight in real life. Our forces put up a robust defense. We have about 20 lines of territorial defense, upwards of 120 guys with automated weapons. The Russian forces are not really ready for partisan warfare, even though it's not a classical partisan warfare. But this is something that they have been doing in Chechnya for the past 15 years. So they would go to apartments and kill people there. They killed those people who fought for the endings of Chechnya. But we have great defenses, and they cannot really move in different directions. So you pick one direction and you move there, and as soon as the convoy starts moving, it can be attacked and destroyed. As a result of an airstrike on Kharkiv, the Albanian consulate was destroyed. This is the statement published by the consulate. Fortunately, no casualties. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Albania condemned this attack. Earlier, the Russian Federation included Albania on their blacklist alongside Montenegro, North Macedonia. I also want to mention that the US, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, Japan, New Zealand are also part of this blacklist of the Russian Federation. We even joked about it, that I think they should just write down who is not on the list. Belarus is there, Eritrea, and North Korea. And now Russia is #1 in one of the rankings. Now Russia is the most sanctioned country globally. I mean, it's not even comparable to North Korea. They also have nukes there. They have a crazy leader. By the way, he lost a lot of weight. Compliments to him. But anyway, Russia is #1 right now. Venezuela is there as well. The U.S. embarked on negotiations with Venezuela to start purchasing oil from them and to stop buying oil from the Russian Federation. Yesterday, we mentioned that Mr. Biden is negotiating with his EU partners right now, because it's important to refuse oil and gas, because on the one hand, Russia is under sanctions, but on the flip side of things, Russia continues selling and making money. So we need to target those sectors that are the primary sources of proceeds for the Russian Federation, because the basis of the Russian economy is the state sector, and whenever oil and gas are sold, there are proceeds for the state sector, for the public sector. So if these negotiations with Venezuela are successful, the U.S. will be able to stop buying from Russia, and this way we will tighten the screws for Russia even further. Exactly, because Russia continues receiving profits from gas and oil sales. The same is true about Russian oligarchs, and Mr. Deripaska at economic forums started making statements about the necessity for peace, because even though he finances Mr. Putin, he does understand that very soon his financial resources will be depleted, so he will not be able to survive himself, let alone fund other people. I will steal away some of the information that you wanted to publicize. Well, Stanislav also does some sports, by the way. Well, but when you look at me, you can't tell, right? But anyway, our Paralympic team has received multiple medals, gold, silver, and bronze. 17 medals after 4 days, 6 gold medals, 7 silver medals, and 4 bronze medals. Right now, we are number 2 in the medal ranking, after China, of course, after China. But we stand a good chance of topping the medal ranking. There's info why the Russians stopped their further advance. They're trying to understand how to encircle Kryvyi Rih. Here's the picture. They're doing some math, making some calculations, but there's no Kryvyi Rih region. We don't really have Kryvyi Rih regional military administration. If you have Mr. Vilkul on your friends list, suddenly he decided that he is a patriot, tell him to follow the Russian ship, because he disinforms those citizens that live in Dnipropetrovsk region in Ukraine, and he plays along the enemy and exerts psychological pressure on Ukrainians. Another piece of information, the Australian oil processing company Apol and Viva Energy halted this purchase of crude oil from Russia. This is something that you referenced earlier. I mean, if we hit this pain point, if we basically cut them off in the oil and gas sectors, this will definitely have a crippling effect on the Russian economy, on ordinary citizens, because they will not be able to receive the same social allowances from the government. So the Russian population stands a good chance of becoming the poorest people, unlike Ukraine, that is receiving aid from multiple countries globally. And we have a video story about that. Let's have a look at it. Dear brothers and sisters, in Ukraine, rivers of blood and tears are flowing. It's not a military operation at all. It's a war. It's a war that spreads death, destruction, and suffering. The number of victims is going up, as well as the people fleeing, especially mothers and children. In this troubled country, there's a dire need for humanitarian aid, and it's increasing day in, day out. From the bottom of my heart, I plea for the organization and security of humanitarian corridor to provide support to the besieged areas in order to offer vital relief to our brothers and sisters, those brothers and sisters that are under bomb attacks and gripped by fear. I'm grateful to each and everyone who provides shelter for refugees. Above all, I implore that the military aggression be stopped, and I really hope that negotiations, peace negotiations and common sense will prevail. We need to respect international law. I also want to thank journalists, those journalists that risk their own lives to provide information. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your service. Your service allows us to approximate the tragedy of the affected population. And thanks to you, we can be exposed to the atrocities of the war. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Let us pray together for Ukraine. We can see its flags in front of us. Let us pray together like brothers and sisters to Our Lady, patron of Ukraine. Blessed art thou, bosom, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of death. Amen. The Holy Seat is ready for everything. We will do our utmost to serve the peace. In these days, two cardinals went to Ukraine to serve people, to help. Cardinal Krajewski, His Grace, will help the needy, and Cardinal Cherny, interim prefect of the dicastery for holistic human development. The presence of the two cardinals means not only the presence of the Pope, but the presence of all Christians who get united and say that war is madness. Stop it. Stop this cruelty. We are standing here in front of the White House every day, and we implore the U.S. government to provide even more support. We are very grateful to the aid provided so far, but we want all the Russian banks to be cut off from SWIFT. We want the U.S. to stop buying oil from Russia. The U.S. needs to provide Ukraine fighter jets because these are the fighter jets that the Ukrainian pilots can start using already now. And they also need to close the sky over Ukraine to protect our affected population from bombs and missiles. This is the only way for our people to survive this aggression. Today in Almaty, on the initiative of several organizations, we have a peaceful rally against the war in Ukraine. Here you can see Almaty citizens who took to the streets to support the Ukrainians. Here we have some monuments of the Soviet era, but here you can see our city hall, and our city hall allowed us to stage this rally in this park. Hello, my name is May Maske, and my Ukrainian publisher asked me to send this message to you. The world can see what is happening. We are distraught. We are very upset. It's a tragedy. But we are fascinated by your bravery and courage, and we will support you in all avenues possible. We are trying to save your freedom. You are brave, and you will win. You will receive aid from each and every corner globally. The world is focused on your news, and it's all very saddening. I also want to thank those Russians who are protesting. We really hope that this war will come to an end soon. Stop the war. Just stop the war.
Наші добровольці у кривавий тан, визволяти рідну країну з московських кайдан, а ми ті московські кайдани розірвемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо, а ми ті московські кайдани розірвемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. Гей у полі ярої пшенички, золотистий лан, розпочали стрільці українські з ворогами там.
Back to the studio, we will continue talking about Sumy. There is a time frame during which people will be evacuated from 10 a.m. till 9 p.m. Sumy, Голубівка, Лохвиця, Лубни, Полтава. This is the only evacuation route. This is the only credible evacuation route. No others exist. Civilians will be evacuated, foreign citizens as well, for example, nationals of India and China. And then humanitarian loads, Лохвиця, Адряшенка, Ромни, Недригайлів, Суми. So this is the route for humanitarian trucks. Women and children will be evacuated first. The Poltava Regional Military Administration informs that 35 buses have already departed from Poltava to Sumy to evacuate people. The Red Cross representatives, medical professionals, also 20 tons of humanitarian aid, food products and medications. So this is the information on Sumy. As soon as we receive evacuation details in other cities, we will present that. We have some problems of this kind in Mariupol, in Kherson. On the weekend, we talked to one representative from Kherson. They are doing more or less fine, but this week they might run into some problems because the Russians do not allow people to come in or go out of the city. The Russian humanitarian aid was told to follow the Russian ship. The local citizens refused to accept this humanitarian aid, so it was used just for appearances to create a nice TV picture. Keep in mind that we have the DIA app. As a lady from Sumy region said, we have DIA, which means action. All the files are protected there. If you work at an enterprise, at an institution, maybe you are a bookkeeper or an accountant, we have some files called certificate. So if you receive a file like that, do not open it. What should you do if you find yourself under artillery attack? Well, do keep in mind that public institutions do not disseminate instructions like that. The only thing you might receive is a message from SASO. Like, for example, my last message from SASO is first aid during wounds and injuries. This is something that you can read in 20 seconds. So only SMS messages, no email distribution. So this is the number one rule, because you remember the Petya virus. Our systems were compromised by this virus in peace times, and this virus can destroy a large number of data. On the topic of DIA, keep in mind that the government of Ukraine adopted a resolution on aid for refugees and IDPs that have lost their jobs, 6,500 hryvnias. This is the amount of allowance, but only those people who fled or who still reside in hotspots will be entitled to this aid. In Lviv region, this service is not available at this point. As for the regions whose population can receive this aid, this is Чернігів, Суми, Харків, Херсон, Запоріжжя, Дніпропетровськ, Odessa, Volyn, Kyiv regions, and the city of Kyiv. How to do that? You need to sign up in DIA app, select the e-support service, select the e-support card. If you don't have it, you can find the details in the DIA app. Then you click on receive aid and wait for the money to be credited to your account. As for the banks participating in this program, this is Monobank, Privatbank, Alfa-Bank, Ощадбанк, Укргазбанk, Raiffeisenbank, Vostok, Idea Bank, EasyBank, and PUM. Some more info on evacuation. The head of the Kharkiv Regional Military Administration, Oleg Sinyahub, stated that they were able to evacuate 600,000 people by train, by car, and this is something that we discussed earlier, the 40,000 that arrived in Lviv. Those were people from Kharkiv. But it should be noted there are still a lot of people left in Kharkiv, those people that continue working and protecting the city. A story of my friend. I asked him whether I could read out some of his messages. His story is very simple. He wanted to leave the city right away, so he was fully prepped. He loves the tourism. He has his own horilka. He has his own burner and some other necessary survival devices. But then his friends called him and said that they were leaving. They didn't pick him up, even though he was in the safest part of the city. He evacuated his mom and sister, so right now they are in the western part of Ukraine. But then at a certain point, he realized that he wanted to stay in Kharkiv. He is helping those who cannot leave. He buys medications. He serves as a volunteer. He used to participate in public communications projects, and he's also supporting foreign journalists with objective coverage of the situation in Kharkiv. So he can help with translation, he can help with logistics in Kharkiv. He is actively engaged despite the shellings. Important information for military service members. We talked about active military service members, 100,000 hryvnias per month. So this is their salary from now on. As per the governmental resolution, during martial law, conscript soldiers will receive additional 30,000 hryvnias on a monthly basis. So this is their additional remuneration. I always say that the conscription service is the first reserve that we have at our disposal, and this is something that we saw in the first days of the war. 2 tanks and a tank convoy were destroyed in the vicinity of Kharkiv by the conscripts. Lviv City Mayor Andriy Sadovy reached out to the international organization with a call for help. The city has already hosted 200,000 refugees from other parts of our country, and we mentioned earlier that there were days when the Lviv railway station received 40 to 60,000 on a daily basis. The city is on the cusp of a catastrophe because the city is overloaded, overcrowded. So the city mayor is calling on international organizations to provide support not abroad but in Lviv and in other cities, because there is a need for makeshift camps, makeshift hospitals. There's a video statement of Mr. Sadovy. As of today, Lviv has already sheltered about 200,000 Ukrainians, women, children, hiding from bombardments and missile strikes, had to flee their homes and come to us. 440 institutions, cultural organizations, educational institutions, 85 religious organizations opened their doors to these refugees, provided them with shelter, roof, hot meals. We provide them with all essentials because these are our citizens. Day in, day out, they are growing in numbers. It's our responsibility to accommodate all of them. Today, I appeal to international organizations. We need your help, not abroad, not on the border. We need this help and support here and now. We need mobile shelters or makeshift shelters from you, specially equipped shelters where we can make food and meals. We are in need of your experience. This is the first time that we are weathering through this experience. Our citizens are staying here because they have faith in our victory, and then they want to be back home to restore and rebuild their cities and communities. I'm asking for your help. United for Ukraine. Back to our live studio. We are preparing a video clip about Підпишіться, so we will show what the situation is like there. But now some good news, but there's a question mark there. I'm not really sure how to respond to this news. The government allowed to get married to military service members without their physical presence. Well, I know why it's being done, to provide some social security guarantees to families, but guys, you might be in trouble because, I mean, I'm really worried about Mr. Arestovich and Mr. Kim because it might turn out that they have multiple wives later. But how will that work? I mean, a person is not there, so this soldier is not physically present. You submit a statement, but who submits a statement on behalf of this man? Well, this man can submit a statement, but the marriage will be registered without his presence. But how do you submit your statement, your application? Well, just imagine this situation. A soldier is in the front line in Mykolaiv region. So this soldier writes an application, photographs it, and then submits it to the marriage registration office. So you can submit this application to the commander of your military unit. The commander of the military unit has to confirm the authenticity of the signature, and then this application is forwarded to the marriage registration office. So this is the ground. Well, I think that the procedure will be as follows. Like, for example, Oksana calls me and says, let's get married. Yeah, sure. So you continue firing, you kill someone or you strike something, and then you write this application, you hand it over to your commander. The commander confirms the authenticity, and then the Ukrainian post office is busy shooting down aircraft and missiles. Well, but the Ukrainian post office cannot really send things like that. So some other channels will be used to transport these applications to marriage registration offices. Well, girls and women, if you were waiting for your boyfriends and partners to make a proposal to you, then you have a great chance right now. You remember that we had people lining up and offering bribes to be included into territorial defense. So it will be the same with commanders right now. So military commanders will receive multiple bribes from girls and women who want to get married to soldiers. But anyway, we are speaking in jest. Yesterday, the Підпишіться railway station opened its doors as well to receive refugees. Let's have the current state of play there. All the belongings, plans, and dreams were left behind. They have only small suitcases with them. There are 4 of us. We have just some clothes and some personal hygiene items. So all the documents are with us. Women have tears in their eyes when remembering the moment of leaving their mem. my mom, I, and our dog. It's temporary. We don't want to leave our country, and our dad left behind to protect our motherland. The newly arrived are distributed to buses that go to the border. Some arrive while others depart, and you have to wait for about half an hour to reduce the strain on the main railway station. Some of the trains stop here. Those people who want to stay here can go to district administrations, while those refugees who want to proceed to the border can hop on the relevant bus. About 80 public buses have been provided for these purposes, and you can hear Slava to Ukraine, glory to heroes on each and every bus.
Ще 10 днів тому у цих місцях виступали артисти, відправляли літургії
About
та
10 days
влаштовували
ago, these were
фотосесії.
the
А
places
сьогодні
where
львівські театри,
we
храми та
could
сучасні
hear the
фотостудії
artists
стали прихистком для
performing.
тимчасових
Now these
гостей.
places have become
Замість вистав на
shelters
сцені
for
театру
the
Леся
displaced
Курбаса
people.
можна
Instead
тепер
of
побачити
performances in
матраці.
Les Courbas
Театральні
theatre,
декорації
you
використовують
could
як ліжка,
see the
а посередині партеру стіл, де
mattresses,
можна
and
поїсти. Актор театру
on the
волонтер
stage there
Андрій
is
Водичев
a table where
розповідає,
you
що
can
приймають
eat.
колег із
The
гарячих
actor
точок,
says
акторів
that
Київського
they
театру
welcome
Березіль та
their colleagues
Харківського
from
проскрипту.
Kyiv and Kharkiv theaters.
Там герої,
Well,
хлопці
there we have our
б'ються
heroes
за
fighting
Україну.
for
Ми
Ukraine,
мусимо принаймні
and
хоча б це
we
робити, щоб
should
приймати
do everything
людей,
possible
які
to
потребують допомоги
accommodate
тут.
people
Львів'яни
requiring
активно
our
приносять
help.
необхідні
The
речі,
Levites
готують
bring
обіди,
necessary
вечері.
people,
Також є душ.
cook
Прихисток у
lunches
стінах театру
and
віднайшла і
dinners.
сім'я Микити.
Here we
Разом
see
із мамою та
the
маленькою
family
сестричкою
of
рятувалися
Margarita,
від
who
ракетних
were
обстрілів
trying
поблизу
to
їхнього будинку у
escape
Києві.
from
Зараз
shellings
почуваються
near
в
their
безпеці.
house in
Чесно
Kyiv. Now
говоря,
they're safe.
їхали
Honestly,
в нікуди.
we were just going
Просто вокруг
to
Києва
nowhere.
йшли обстріли.
We have heard shellings
ніяких
around
ракет.
Kyiv.
І
We
було
saw the
прийнято рішення
missiles falling,
мамою.
and our
Сразу
mother
ехать
took a
в Львов.
decision
Вчера
to go
приехали.
to Lviv.
Это первая ночь
This
тут
is
в
our
театре.
first night
Приняли
here at
очень
the
хорошо.
theatre.
То
They
есть сразу,
welcomed us in a
как
very
только
good
вышли с
way.
вокзала,
The
там
moment we
есть
were
пункты,
on the
где
railway
бесплатно
station,
кормят.
there
У
were
випадку
certain points
авіаційної тривоги
that
працівники театру
where we could get
організували
some
в підвалі спеціально обладнане
in the
бомбосховище.
cellar there is a special bomb shelter. Here we see the rings used in one of our performances, and in case there is an air alert, people will use them to inform that there is somebody here. Here we see some signals to show that there are people here. Let's go, we won't need it.
Також вирішили
Also, the same initiative was supported in Lviv Maria Zenkovetsky's theatre.
Тут облаштували
Igor
гуманітарний штаб для
Petruk says
потреб
that here they
військових та
have the
біженців.
humanitarian headquarters to meet the needs of displaced people and refugees. We were trying to do it with our own efforts. We were trying to do the masking nets, but then we decided to make a call over the internet, and immediately we saw people coming,
На першому
bringing
поверсі
things we
театру,
needed.
наче у вулику. До процесу
Here you
долучилися
see a sort
актори,
of a
працівники
hive,
цехів, медики, волонтери та
Together work the
студенти-інтерни.
actors,
Вже сьомий
the
день поспіль вони
medical
фасують
staff,
ліки
the
та інші
students.
необхідні
They
речі у коробки,
distribute
плетуть сітки.
things, they make the networks, the nets for the front. We have already made several nets like that, and well, we see people coming here and
Простором
helping
спільної біди
us.
не залишились і в храмі
Nobody
Святого
is
Лазаря.
staying aside.
Тут
For
облаштували
example, here
невеличкий
we have
прихисток
the
хористи з капели
Cathedral of
Додарок.
St. Lazar,
Приймають жінок з
and
дітьми.
they
Для
welcome
них облаштували 3
ladies
спальні,
with
їдальню
kids.
та
There are
санвузол.
3
Небайдужі мешканці
sleeping
міста
rooms,
приносять
there
сюди
is
харчі, а гарячі обіди
canteen,
для матерів з
and
малечою
people bring here
забезпечують
some
волонтери
food,
з
some
ресторанів.
hot
Це є
lunches,
наш репетиційний
which are
клас
delivered
нашої
by
хорової
people
капели.
from restaurants.
Зараз тут, то, що ви
Here
бачите,
is
ми
our
на
rehearsal
станках
class. Right
помістили
here now we
такі
have
матраці і
the sleeping
організували спальні
places,
місця
so this is a sort of
для
a
наших
sleeping room for
тимчасових
our
гостей.
У храм по
guests.
допомогу звернулась
Here
харків'янка
we have
Світлана з
Kharkiv
маленькою
Liva
донечкою.
Svetlana.
На жаль, їхній
She
дім під час
has a
обстрілів
small
знищили.
kid, and unfortunately their house was destroyed. Let your volunteers stay healthy and happy, because I have not had such warm welcome. It's all inclusive here, very kind-hearted people, and even if they see you crying or a child crying, they hug you. They try to give you some comfort. They
Для матерів із
experience
дітьми
our
також
pain.
облаштували два
They
бомбосховища,
also
які розташовані
made
одразу за вівтарем.
two
Прийняти
bomb
гостей
shelters
готові в сучасній
behind the
студії
altar.
«Драбина», де раніше
The modern
відбувалися
studio
масштабні
Drabina
фотосесії.
photo
Тут
studio
немає
is
умов для
also
довготермінового проживання та душу, але є
sort of a
все необхідне
coordinating
для
center.
ночівлі в теплі.
They have all the necessities to make this sleeping area. So today, for example, we have had 35 places. Just imagine a mother with a child
Одна із
comes, it
прибулих
means
гостей
they
ще
occupy
зовсім
one
юна киянка
place.
Катя.
One of the
Налякана
guests
дівчина
is
приїхала сюди
a
сама у
Kyiv
пошуках безпечнішого
Katya,
місця.
who came here herself trying to find a safe place. Not far from our place of residence, there were two explosions, and I was actually frightened. Here I feel safe, I feel comfortable. They have very good attitude to us. Those who were sheltered become volunteers themselves.
Програма «Очі».
Діана Масюра, Антон Волокіза, Очі програм.
Переходимо до інших областей.
We go to the other regions and we try to follow the situation in Sumy. According to the vice head of the presidential office, Kirill Tymoshenko, evacuation has started. The column is going through Green Corridor. This is the first evacuation stage. We keep our fingers crossed for people to leave the region. As it was agreed, the humanitarian corridor will be operating from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. I think it will be enough to evacuate all the people. The most important thing is to have this opportunity, because the occupiers still shell the private cars and the trains and buses. There were several videos in the network where people, by using their private transport, were shelled by the Russian military forces. Yesterday, we saw the information from the Security Service of Ukraine that actually these Russian soldiers were given order to shell, to fire at civilians, to prevent them from leaving the dangerous areas. Yesterday, I was just listening to some of the conversations, and I heard one of the military men boasting to his wife that he killed lots of civilians, and he was actually boasting about being a looter and taking some fur coats. Well, no comments here, but actually the reality is totally different. This is the quotation of one of the military men. We are lagging behind our convoy. We are staying in the forest. We were eating our food, and then your civilians came to us. Either you surrender or we kill you. So we dropped all our things, so we are the prisoners now. So the strongest army in the world, of the Kharkiv, Kyiv, Chernihiv army, but our military, our manpower, Ukrainian soldiers are not going to surrender. The mayor of Irpin, Alexander Merkushin, said that he was actually offered, and he was even threatened to surrender, and he said that he got this message with threats to his life and to his health, and the requirement was to surrender Irpin. And he said that I'm surprised that these stupid people cannot still understand that Irpin will never surrender. We are fighting. We shall never give live in, and he made some screenshots of these messages from one of the Russian phone numbers. So the message is like that, and I will interpret it into Ukrainian. Dear Alexander, you have the opportunity to stay alive and even to improve your material condition. So it means he was offered a bribe for surrendering the city. And actually the vice mayors of Kyiv were not offered this. So the mayor of Irpin was actually offered money for surrendering. If you are interested in this proposal, please send a plus as a response to this message during 24 hours. Definitely Markushin didn't agree and has written a minus. Vitaly Kima has 20,000 more subscribers in his network, and our TV channel is actually greeting all those men who left the territory of Ukraine. This is your day, the 8th of March. Melitopol, for many days we stayed, what is the situation there with the TV tower, with the communication, the internet connection and the mobile connection is blocked, while the TV power is controlled by the occupiers. So whatever news you get from Melitopol, just find out whether they are official. It may be one more provocation and fake, because the Russians are just going around the territories they control and make videos how they save poor people, and they forget to change the actors. And in different regions we see the same people, poor elderly man or poor elderly lady. The faces are just the same. The security service of Ukraine informed about a new virus, a new message that blocks all your phones, actually not blocking your phones, but gathering the information for the occupiers. So please do not open any references, even if it is the school parental chat or the residential chat. Even if you trust a person, do not open something. For example, I had a personal case. I have one of my relatives whom I trust, who was the member of the law enforcement bodies, and people still fall in different provocations and send each other references to unknown websites, and the occupiers get all the necessary information they need. So today is the 8th of March, and in case somebody is going to send you any postcards, any flowers or hearts, this is also one of the elements that help to gather information, and later this information may be used by the enemy. The information from Washington Post, they say that Ukraine will ask the US Congress to exclude the companies that are still on the Russian market from the stock exchange. US, one of the corporations still operating in Germany, and the Ukrainians understand that the sanctions should be promoted by the US because we cooperate with the US, Australia, Canada, our British partners, but also we try to cooperate with our European partners. We see that France, Germany are still trying to save their economy and have some agreements with Putin. Well, in Germany there is a special program which is working in the EU to reduce the amount of Russian oil and gas, and they have to accelerate it and to speed, and still now they cooperate with Russia, and by this they continue financing the Russian terrorism in Ukraine. And talking about this option of a quick marriage, well, we were wrong a bit. It is both about female and male military military servicemen, service people. So even if it is a lady who's in the army now, and if she wants to get married, she definitely can go to the commander, and then the lady may write the application. The application will be delivered to the courts, to the registration offices, and you will have a chance to get married. So the option is available for everybody, be it, for example, the servicemen of the law enforcement officers, the bodyguard service of Ukraine, the National Guard, the armed forces of Ukraine, any military forms, as far as I understand, the territorial defense units, the policemen, special civil protection units, special enforcement service, the members of the Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, the member of economic security, and the people from medical institutions. So huge lists actually. So here are the opportunities for you, dear ladies and gentlemen. One more business is leaving Russia. Procter & Gamble is leaving Russia. They won't have stuff to wash themselves with. So 65 well-known brands leave Russia, starting with Proper, Gillette, and many others. Well, just remember, these are 100,000 probably jobs if we take into account all the brands whose activities created jobs in Russia. So all these people will be unemployed. And we emphasize the key point. The Russian system is functioning on the basis of the Russian civil staff. The civil officers, and they get their salaries, just because the European partners refused to impose sanctions on Russian energy sector. Oil can be bought, gas can be bought, the prices are really high, and all this money goes to support the Russian system. But at the same time, this psychological pressure on the Russians, I'm talking about the brands leaving Russia, is very important, because we gave the video from the Russian main department store, and all the brands like Max Mara, Chanel, and many others are absent. This is a psychological blow. So here we see people coming and they do not have any places to buy something. From psychological point of view, they are burned with these messages. They are outcasts. They are pariahs of the world. Well, the Russians are deprived of trips abroad, of brands, of all this stuff. This is economic occupation or isolation. Another video I saw yesterday, the Russians who came and wanted to ATM machines were unable to withdraw money. All the brands are leaving Russia, while the headquarters of the armed forces of Ukraine posted a video where Alexander Tkachuk has written a song, Bella Ciao. It is performed by Vitaly Voitenko, and the song is dedicated to the victory of Ukrainian forces over the Russian invaders. So let's listen to the song.
Одного ранку прийшов додому, о, Бела Чао, Бела Чао, Бела Чао, 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 прийшов зморений, але щасливий, відбив країну вороги. Привіт, кохана, я повернувся. О, Бела Чао, Бела Чао, Бела Чао, 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 мене чекала. недаремно молилася, щоб був живий. Мене чекала і недаремно молилася, щоб був живий. Ця перемога здобута кров'ю. О, белла чао, белла чао, белла чао, 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 героям слава і мир в домівки, а ворогам лиш тільки смерть. Героям слава і мир в домівки, а ворогам лиш тільки смерть. Із кулемета щодня стріляв я. О, белла чао, белла чао, белла чао, 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 я щиро вірив і не здавався, щоб були вільні назавжди. Я щиро вірив і не здавався, щоб були вільні назавжди. О, люба моя, ми не скорені. О, белла чао, белла чао, белла чао, 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 ми за свободу землі своєї. Русню розірвем, так і знай. Ми за свободу землі своєї, русню розірвем, так і знай.
Белла чао, говорять наші
Белла
захисники
чао
російському окупанту, рівно ж як говорять
something we
світові
say to the
бренди
Russian
російському
occupiers.
ринку. Ми маємо
This is
в
something
студії
said by the
нового
Russian
гостя, це
brands
Степан
to the
Кульбіда,
Russian
директор
market. Here we
департаменту
have Stepan
економічної
Kulbida,
політики
the
Львівської
head of
обласної
the
військової
economic policy
адміністрації.
department,
Степане, вітаємо, слава
Lviv
Україні.
military and civil
Якраз в світі Белла Чао я
administration.
от спеціально
Glory to
зробив такий
Ukraine, glory to
хороший видний
heroes.
надпис. І
Wow.
Казахстан пам'ятав, що я діда звідти.
I just wearing this Adidas hoodie for the Russians to remember that Adidas is no more there. Let's hope we'll have more hoodies with those brands that leave the Russian market. Let's talk about the Ukrainian market, Lviv market, about the shops. We see lots of displaced people here. We have already heard the address of Adrisa Dovizina, Lviv, about 200,000 people staying in Lviv and asking the international organizations to help us with accommodation places. What about the food products? Let's hope we'll
Дивіться,
have
тут
more
декілька
supplies.
блоків питань.
Well, here we
Перше,
deal
те, що
with
стосується
several
торгових мереж,
issues.
так як ми з вами і
The
говорили,
first
ми
thing,
комунікуємо,
we
ми робимо
communicate,
заміщення
we
в
try to
частині
replace
постачальників,
the
але як
suppliers,
бачимо, в якихось мереж
but
це
we see
виходить
that
краще,
some
в якихось
networks
мереж це
manage to do
виходить
it
гірше,
better,
людський
some
фактор він завжди є присутній.
still
Я не буду називати
some
тих, в
problems.
кого це виходить
I
гірше,
will
ми
not
їх дуже
mention
добре
those
бачимо,
who
бо
are
люди нам
lagging
пишуть дуже
behind,
часто на
who have
Фейсбук,
some
скидують
issues, because
фотофакти,
we
ми це
know who these people
комунікуємо.
are.
Але
We have some
є такі,
facts
в яких типу все ок.
informed by
Ну, там,
people.
наприклад, от я вчора
And
особисто заїхав,
the
подивився,
run,
що робиться в сільпо,
for
ну, там,
example,
може, деяких
things
окремих
that
товарних
are quite fine.
одиниць не
In
було.
Sirpo, for example,
Разом з
everything
тим,
is fine,
не
but for
треба
some
так
minor
глибоко впадати в
items.
паніку.
Do
Львівщина,
not
вона є фактично
panic.
одним із
Lviv
хабів,
is one
таких
of the
центральних
central
хабів перевалочних,
hubs,
в які з'їжджається
distribution
дуже багато
hubs,
гуманітарної
where we
допомоги.
have lots of
І
humanitarian
те,
aid
про що ми говорили
coming.
і минулого
And
разу,
last time
основні
we
гумштаби
also
працюють, і ті
stated that the
переселенці,
main
які сьогодні
humanitarian
є на території Львівської області, вони
things are
можуть туди
operating
піти і
and the
отримати
displaced
ту
people
чи
may
іншу
go
допомогу,
to
чи
these
харчами, чи якимось
humanitarian
матеріальним забезпеченням.
centers and get all the help they
Звичайно,
need,
що
be it
проектні
clothes or
потужності
food or
і,
something else.
скажімо так, торгових
Definitely,
мереж, вони точно не були
the
розраховані на таку
capacities of the
кількість осіб,
trade
і зараз
networks
менеджмент їх мусить
were not big
переналаштуватися. Тобто
enough
це є
to
процедура,
cover
ну,
all these
вона не є
people.
дуже
And
швидкою,
now
і
it's
ми
necessary
розуміємо,
to
що вона десь може
change
пробуксувати,
their
десь трошки
capacities, and the
затримати.
procedure will take some
І
time.
другий блок, це нам
Another block of
складно, скажімо
issues.
так, сьогодні
It's
спрогнозувати,
difficult
а
for us
скільки
to
ж іще
predict
буде тих
how
переселенців. Бо
more
сьогодні
people
майже
we are
Львівська
going
область,
to
їх є доволі таки
Now we
багато.
do have many
Слава
of them.
Богу, станом на зараз
Thanks
нам
God,
вдається
right
їх
now
розміщувати.
we managed to accommodate
Десь
them.
поодинокі
We have
випадки є,
probably
коли
some single
хтось не
cases
може знайти
when people
собі
cannot
місце, все
find any
функціонує.
accommodation.
Але
Everything is fine,
маємо розуміти, що є
functioning
людський
quite
фактор,
good,
його ніхто не
but there is
відміняв.
the
Каже,
human
пробуксовки
factor.
вони були,
And,
є і
well, we
будуть.
understand there may be some failures. Talking about shops, and it is your issue, you have just raised.
Деякі магазини
Some
працюють,
shops
є на районі
are
малі,
on
і працівники їхні теж
till
там.
8
Чи можна
o'clock.
поговорити з бізнесом, що
So
якщо
is
ваші
it
працівники
possible to
живуть там кілометр-два від
discuss
магазину,
with
щоб вони
business, for
працювали хоча
example,
б до
if
9,
some of your
і у
staff
людей була
lives
можливість довше
nearby the
закупитися.
shop you work in, probably you can extend the working hours till 9 p.m.
Якось не дуже хочеться
Well,
вказувати
we
комусь
actually
про
do
режим
not want to
роботи.
instruct
Так, ну,
people
так,
how
нехай це
they
буде
should work.
сформульовано у вигляді. Просити
Okay,
насправді ті чи
recommend.
інші мережі, чи
Whatever
якісь
networks we are
дрібні
talking
магазини,
by,
мафи,
be
тощо,
this
вони вже
big
розуміючи
networks or
те
retail
середовище, в
shops
якому
or
вони
small
перебувають, вони
kiosks,
десь
they
підлаштовуються
already
якраз
understand the environment and they
під
try
графік.
to
Ну, давайте
adjust
будемо
their
об'єктивними.
working hours.
Якщо ти заходиш там в
Let's be
перший
objective.
супермаркет і
If
там
you
чогось
enter
немає,
just
ну,
a
не
big
треба розводити
supermarket
зраду і
and you do
паніку.
not
Треба просто піти в
find what
сусідній
you need
магазин,
there,
бо там може бути.
do
Треба
not
піти в
panic.
гуманітарний
Please
центр,
go
бо
to
там може
another
бути.
shop there. Go to
Ну, а
humanitarian
скажімо, для
center.
тих маленьких магазинчиків, які ми
and
називаємо
let's
там
say,
мафами, для
the
них
small
же ж не обмежено
shops,
тільки 8 години,
they are
все,
not
8 годині
limited,
закрилися. Вони можуть і до 9 попрацювати,
regarding
якщо
working hours.
умовно продавець
They
живе
may
в сусідньому
probably work
будинку,
till 9
може
o'clock
зачинити
if
цей
the
магазин
shop
за 10 хвилин.
assistant
Звичайно,
works,
вони можуть
lives
працювати
nearby.
таких обмежень
Definitely
щодо
there are
їхнього
no
режиму
limitations
роботи.
regarding their working
Ні
hours.
Ради об'єднаних громад
So,
не
nothing has
встановлювали
been
в цей
imposed
особливий
on
період.
them.
Тобто ми
In this special
розуміємо, що
period,
продовольче
we
забезпечення воно
understand
мусить
that
функціонувати.
food
Я просто
supply
для себе десь
should
розумію,
be
що власники
continuous.
магазинів,
I understand that the
опираючись десь
owners
на
of
цю
the shop,
комендантську годину і проблеми з логістикою через
on the basis of this
самовільні
curfew
пункти
and on the
пропуску,
basis of these
називаємо це так,
logistic
десь беруть
issues
собі
like
трошки запас
man-made
часу, щоб добратися
checkpoints,
до будинку
need
і не
more
мати
time
проблем.
to
Власне,
get to
говоримо про
their
ті, які
homes.
є в межах будинків,
We are
де можна
talking
швиденько його
about
зачинити, і нема
those
проблем. Там два
shops
продавці,
which are
маленький
very
магазин
small,
закрився в 9
and which are very
і
small,
люди мають ще
and where
можливість
people
докупити ті, які
live
вертаються
close to
пізніше
the
з роботи.
shops, and
Вчора
probably
уряд
they
дозволив
can
військовим
operate till 9
адміністраціям
p.m.
разом з Нацполіцією,
Yesterday,
разом
the
з
government
службою
allowed
з
the
питань
civil
ліків
military
контролювати,
administration
так би мовити, мародерів, які
to
підіймають ціни.
control
Є у нас таких
the
багато випадків,
looters
звертаються до
who raise
департаменту,
prices.
скаржачись на ті
We
мережі
have
чи на ті аптеки, які
messages
собі
about the
дозволяють у період
pharmacies,
війни,
about the
ну,
networks
без
who
всяких підстав підіймати ціни.
just raise prices without any grounds. Yes, we have such complaints. The complaints go not only to us, to the police, to the Bureau of Economic Security. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the representative of the Economic Security Bureau, and we saw the complaints. They can be categorized. For example, there are complaints about 5 or 7 growth in terms of prices, and it may be related to some inflation process, the exchange rate, some interruptions of supplies, etc. And there are stories where we see geometric progression, and the prices have increased 300, 500 times. These are bad stories, definitely. I'm not going to disclose the information, the details, but there are cases when, for example, good property real estate agent was found who has brought prices up several times. So we had a mail talk with this person.
Продовжуючи цю тему, я лише такий холодний
And
коментар додам, бо ми обговорюємо
I'll provide
часто про ці
probably very
скарги,
unemotional
особливо на
comment.
ріелторів, які
We
піднімають
discussed
ціни або на
the
власників квартири.
complaints about the real estate and the owners of the houses who increased prices, and there were already cases when a flat cost 3,000 or 4,000 hryvnias per day. And now we should consider one more thing. Since 2014, 2022, lots of property was bought not by the Levites, but by the residents of other districts. And it will be nice to hear more about this real estate agent who had a talk with the policeman. We'll definitely make it public in due time. But for me, it doesn't mean who is the owner of the property. This is the territory of the region, and as Lviv and civil and military administration, we are responsible for everything here. So we have become more attentive in to these good in brackets people in the region, and we'll work with them. Talking about security service of Ukraine, have you detained any people who are suspected of sabotage activities? Definitely we detain such people who have 3 or 5 mobile phones, lots of SIM cards, they have lots of images of critical infrastructure. Even the building of the city administration was taken photo of. Probably they are lovers of Lviv architecture. Okay, let them stay in a special building, and probably they will give us lots of interesting facts. By the way, there is actually an interesting electricity station which was built many years ago. So let's be just. These are single cases in our region. You should be a clinical idiot to do something in our region. I mean, these Russians, the contacts, well, we know that these people came into contact with the Russians, with the enemies. It is well documented, and I think that in the nearest future we shall have some indictments and this stuff. The information from the security service of Ukraine, everything is fine.
Yeah, it's very soothing. Well, I need to be careful because my wife is watching. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine expanded the evacuation program, evacuation from the armed conflict zone to the western part of Ukraine. So if some companies want to move their people and production capacities to the western part of Ukraine, you can find all the details on Telegram channel of Mr. Hetmantsev. He's our MP. Have you received any requests from companies to be moved to Lviv region? Well, you might remember that yesterday we discussed some global things, and I said that it was not the right time, and the time has already come. Yesterday we had several good communications with the businesses and the Ministry of Economic Development, because Mr. Hetmantsev made this post on Telegram, and then it became part of the decree of the Prime Minister, and we are working directly with the leadership of the military administrations where hostilities are ongoing. And so we are trying to establish good communications because we want to show some of the investment land plots that we have. We do understand that greenfield is of no interest right now because it will take you some time to have all the utilities and communications in place. It will be a time-consuming process. But in Lviv region, we have a lot of incompleted construction. We have some companies in factories that do not utilize all their production capacities. In peace times, we took inventory of all these facilities and land plots. So this is something that we can show to our friends from other parts of the country. We really hope that in the next several days we will be able to process this information and we will be ready to accommodate them on specific premises. There are two companies, I don't remember their names because I know Lviv-based companies. Like, for example, one company will have the production of bulletproof vests in Zhovkva district, and another company, plastic production within the boundaries of Lviv. Are there any specific production facilities that you are ready to accommodate? It can be anything. If there is a production company that wants to move to the western part of Ukraine, the transportation of production capacities should not be a problem. We have plenty of space and plenty of plots that we can offer with all the utilities in place, with all the communications in place. Everything is already in place. Just come here. What about Andretan? Because I know that his company is making some military things right now. I have another question. I had a conversation with one person who has something to do with the companies in Lviv. A lot of staff people have to move abroad because there's no work here. So maybe we can retrain them. I had another meeting yesterday. I invited the heads of all business associations in Lviv region, and we had a very complicated and lengthy conversation, multiple specific points, about 50 of them. Since you mentioned the light industry, I want to point out that today at 3 p.m. We will have a meeting on Zoom with the representatives of the light industry because we want to collect their problems and start attending to them. But right now, raw materials are the biggest challenge. Raw materials and contractors. I will start with the latter. In terms of contractors, usually we use the give and take raw materials, but a lot of companies don't really want to place orders here because you never know where a missile might hit. But now we can see that the Lviv region is a more stable part of the country in comparison with the east, but it's very difficult to persuade foreigners about it. As for the issue of raw materials, unfortunately, over our independence, we have lost the production of raw materials in Lviv region. We had it before, but we've lost most of it. And now I am in contact with Mr. Bodnar. He's our ambassador in Turkey. And potentially we will be procuring fabrics from them. And then these fabrics will be used to make uniforms and some other accessories for the army. Why do I want to have this meeting with the representatives of light industry? I'm an economist, I'm not an expert in fabrics, but I want to receive specific details from them, all the specs, whether they have the lapels or whether they have anything else necessary. Because even if you have fabric, it doesn't really mean that you can make something out of it. We cover a lot of things taking place in Lviv region, but as for Volyn, Cherkasy, Ivano-Frankivsk regions, very little information about these parts of the country. Maybe there are more possibilities to produce something there. Maybe we should focus on having production here. So what's on the agenda right now? Well, unfortunately, I haven't been really communicating with my counterparts in other regions, but I don't really think that it's that quiet there. I mean, maybe a little bit more quiet than here, but anyway. I remember that recently we had a closed meeting with some MPs, and there was a representative from Volyn region. So we asked about Lutsk and other cities and communities in Volyn region. I mean, all the operations are in full swing. There are a lot of things taking place behind the scenes. The fact that these regions are not covered by the mass media does not mean that nothing is being done. They also try to be in contact with businesses like us. They dig trenches, they produce anti-tank hedgehogs, they produce Molotov cocktails. So there's a lot of things happening. But I also have a question about industrial parks. We had a show about that. There's this program for 3 years. But is it possible for industrial parks to expand their activities to offer preferential conditions for businesses? So there are some guarantees from the government. Please come back here, produce or operate, and you will be protected. This is something that the Prime Minister mentioned yesterday in one of his statements. He referred to industrial parks, and I think it's a good signal for investors. So basically, the #1 person in our country responsible for economic development mentioned industrial parks, and he has a very good understanding what should be done. Can industrial parks viewed as appealing territories right now? Well, to be frank, no, because of their infrastructure. The infrastructure of industrial parks is a complex thing. It's pricey, and it takes a lot of time to set things up. I mean, it's not time-consuming under regular conditions, but under work conditions, it's quite challenging. We have some brownfield lots that can be used. If we manage to handle this situation, and we will, then industrial parks can become solid magnets in the future, providing the government does its part of the job. What are some of the preferences or privileges that businesses will be offered? That maybe, for example, reduced taxes, because it's important for local businesses to continue operating and paying income taxes. We discuss these things with local communities. They need to be very careful in their communication with local businesses, but you don't really even need to convince them because we all are on the same page. As for those taxes that are established by the national government, there are no problems here, and we don't really have a single territorial community that tries to increase local taxes. But as for preferences and privileges, we need to stick to those programs that we already have in place, because they also require enormous financial resources. Like, for example, zero interest loans. Well, this is unprecedented for Ukraine. And in many European countries, they cannot really boast of offering zero interest loans and credit. So we will definitely step up these efforts. We will also continue supporting startups. As for the economic breakthrough, I must acknowledge that we will not be able to make it with our regional resources, but if we have a consolidated position of the government, of the regions, of the communities, we will succeed. We referenced meetings with businesses. We do understand that many people left the city of Lviv region. Do you have any info on the number of human resources lost by businesses in the region? I will respond to this question from a different perspective, if I may. There are some people who left Lviv region. We are tracking data on a regular basis. We also have military commissars responsible for mobilizing men into the armed forces of Ukraine. We discussed this issue with entrepreneurs yesterday. They are really concerned about this issue. There were people from about 15 various associations, about 15 to 20%. So this is the percentage of employees and workers that regional companies lost for various reasons. Well, I mentioned yesterday that we need to be very circumspect about critical infrastructure facilities. And even if military commissars go to production companies to mobilize some of the staff members, they need to be very careful, and they should not mobilize critical workers for any company. Today, I intend to have a meeting with the head of the employment center. We understand that a lot of people are coming into Lviv. Some of them go to the military draft office and they are rejected there. Well, by the way, there are multiple jokes circulating in the interest. Like, I mean, no one wants to serve in the army, but now people are even ready to pay bribes to be included into the ranks of the armed forces. So if these people cannot, for whatever reason, join the army, they need to go to the employment center, and then the employment center will refer them to those companies that have lost some of their workforce. That might create some legal problems, because if you haven't resigned from your previous workplace, the employment center cannot register you. So there will be some legal matters to attend to, but we will sort it out. Are you aware of any assets that have been seized for the army purposes? Well, I haven't really heard any stories of someone coming to a company and seizing some assets. I mean, there might have been some requests for help. Confiscations might have taken place. Cigarettes, cell phones, tablets, laptops, cars, even things like that have been donated to the army. Or maybe they use it to conceal contraband. Well, there are two pieces here. So we have some items that have been stockpiled at warehouses. So everything is fine with such loads. But there's another piece here. There are some bastards who, under the pretext of humanitarian aid, want to move some valuables, like some trendy, pricey things. But our security forces just refer this truck to a military draft office, and then there are no problems. Stanislav is really concerned about the issue of abandoned vehicles. We have multiple vehicles that are towed away from the railway station. I mean, some of the vehicles have been there for 15 or 12 days. So what happens to these vehicles? Well, do not spread panic among people, but people need to take them away. We discussed it with our security forces. We try to support them, but we have a separate place for such vehicles. No looting, no illegal action. So a tow-away truck picks up, lifts a vehicle and tows it away to a pre-designated area. Well, maybe we can use that money for war purposes. We make a lot of jokes about those cars and vehicles that are parked in different parts of the city. That maybe we need to confiscate all these cars and vehicles and use the proceeds for military purposes. Another important aspect, when we confiscated some assets and transferred them to the army needs, people got very creative. You know, they started bringing in vehicles with foreign number plates from abroad and donating them for military purposes. Well, Mr. Fedorov is not doing such a great job then. Well, I don't really think that it's his fault. Well, in the Dia app, you can get 6,500 hryvnias if you've lost your job. So do not fling any accusations at Mr. Fedorov, because he's one of the best ministers right now. Stepan Kubida, the director of the Economic Policy Department from the Lviv Regional Military Administration, thank you very much for the latest info. And we have a new statement from President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky. Dear Ukrainian ladies, always on this day, we congratulate you on a holiday, the Feast of Spring. Ukrainian women, girlfriends, wives, our mothers, we always congratulate you on this day, but not today. Today, I cannot communicate the traditional words to you. I cannot just congratulate you. I cannot do that when we have so many deaths, when we have so much suffering, when we have so much sorrow, while the war is ongoing, a full-fledged, large-scale terrorist war against our people, the people of Ukraine. The invaders bombarded Sumy again. They used aviation bombs. They bombarded and pounded our peaceful city, the city that has never been a threat to Russia within its history. Sumy region is transformed into hell. Mariupol, a peaceful and hard-working town, has been encircled, and they are exhausting the city. They are subjecting the city to torture. The occupants cut off communications. They block the supply of food products and water. They cut off power supply. For the first time in decades, I guess for the first time since the invasion of the Nazis, one child died of dehydration. Please hear me today. Dear partners, I'm appealing to you. A child died of dehydration. A child died of dehydration in 2022. It's been the 30th day that we've been fighting. We've been destroying the occupants wherever we may, but the sky is still there. Hundreds of the Russian cruise missiles, hundreds of aircraft, hundreds of Russian helicopters. We are decimating them. In the past 30 years, Russia has not lost that many aircraft and helicopters as during 13 days of war in Ukraine. But they still have sufficient machines of death and murder. They still have sufficient machines of terror and torture. They still have plenty of 200-kilo bombs to drop on our territory. Kyiv, Чернігів, Odessa, Kharkiv, Poltava, and Zhytomyr. Hundreds and hundreds of Ukrainian cities and towns, millions and millions of peaceful Ukrainian people. 13 days. For 13 straight days, we have heard promises. We've been hearing that, yeah, the aid is coming. It will be in the sky. The jets will be provided. The death of each and every citizen of Ukraine is on your shoulders. This is the responsibility of the Russian Federation. This is the responsibility of the Russian command and leadership, those who issue these orders, those who make flagrant violations of warfare. They are purposely decimating the Ukrainian people. So this is the fault of the Russian leadership. But responsibility also lies with those people who have not been able to make the much-needed decisions for 13 days. They have not been able to make an obvious decision. This is the blame, the responsibility of those people that have not protected the Ukrainian sky from the Russian murderers. They have not saved our Ukrainian cities from aviation bombs, from missiles, even though they could have done so. They do not help us with lifting blockades. We have hundreds and hundreds of cities that are on the cusp of death. They are poised between life and death. We need the much-needed, the vital combat aviation, air defense, and anti-missile systems. So these are vital, much-needed things that we need. There are multiple agreements about the establishment of humanitarian corridors to save our citizens, for example, in Mariupol, but they failed. All of them have failed so far, and I don't have any time left on my hands to wait any longer. We don't have the time. People in Mariupol don't have the time. The occupants want our people to die, not us. We sent humanitarian supplies to Mariupol. Everything is there. We sent vehicles to evacuate people, brave and courageous drivers. They do understand that the Russian occupants can just shell them or shoot them en route. This is something that they did in the past. They shot peaceful people who just tried to get evacuated to safe places. But if you shell even these vehicles and these people, then know that that will take place in front of the entire world. Everyone will bear witness to that, and everyone will testify. Each and every person that issues hideous orders will be condemned and will be punished. We remember what happened with the evacuation corridor in Sumy, and it's not only about our citizens. We also have hundreds of nationals from India, from China. They did their studies in Sumy. I was told that the International Red Cross Committee does not allow us to use emblems on these vehicles, humanitarian vehicles. This is a ban from the Red Cross Committee, as if those vehicles were their property. And it's illustrative. It speaks volumes about the fact that some people, influential people, decided to erase our country. But I will not allow for that to happen. We will not allow for that to happen. Our friends are by our side. I will appeal to the nations globally, if the leadership of their countries do not put in sufficient effort to stop this war. We continue our communications with our partners, with the leaders of all the countries. They know how to help Ukraine. We've had a very busy negotiation. I've talked to the president of Lithuania. The Lithuanian people have been side by side with our people. I also had a conversation with the president of the European Council, our friend Charles Michel, the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi. But there are certain things that do not result from negotiations, that are not contingent on us. They are contingent on the humanity that has to prevail. It has to overcome fear. It has to overcome any demands. And then we will see that the Ukrainian sky is safe, that the Ukrainian cities have been deblocked. This is something that we can do together as people, together with the world. And if the world remains on the sidelines, they will lose themselves forever, because there are some inalienable values, universal values that are the same for everyone. Life is one of them, the right to life for each and everyone. This is something that we are fighting for, ferociously fighting for in Ukraine, together with our military. This is something that they want to deprive us of, these weak occupants. And this is something that the entire world has to stand up for. Glory to Ukraine. Back to the studio, Перший Західний TV channel, and we will continue talking about the recent developments in Lviv and other regions. Enerhodar and Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, for 4 days, the power station has been controlled by the Russian forces. 2 energy reactors are operating. 1 is under repair. All the other ones are not operating. There are no changes in the radiation conditions. Having listened to yet another statement of our president, it really hurts me that a child died of dehydration in the town of Mariupol. I think now it's a permanent stigma on the Russian people. They already have multiple other labels and stigmas. I mean, how come that they did not let humanitarian convoys in? How come they do not let people out? I mean, these are innocent people. If you don't know how to fight as an army, then why take revenge on civilians? Why take revenge on children, small kids who have no clue what war is? Well, I guess that pressure on the population is the main weapon that Russia utilizes, because they want the local population to pressurize the government and then this way force the Ukrainian government to agree to their conditions. Starý Lev restaurant is putting together a truck for Kharkiv. The truck will depart tomorrow, so they are ready to take in durable food products, medications, children's food and diapers. Halitska Street 17, so you can take your things there. And there is a request from the humanitarian command post: food products, apples, dried fruit, preserves, pasta, grains and cereals, bread, oil, soda, dry cookies, condensed milk, some household items like wet and dry napkins, some sanitary pads for women, matches, etc. You should take everything to Kopernika 17, but always calculate and sort out whatever you bring, because we don't want to overload their volunteers. Another reminder, there's a humanitarian hub on Kopernika Street 17. This is the main humanitarian organization in Lviv, but there are multiple structural units as well. We had a meeting with Ms. Patrician, a representative of the Warriors House. They have their own small humanitarian hub. There are several other addresses that you can find on the internet. These are those organizations that are catering for the needs of our army and refugees. Well, you might think that how come that people have come here without essentials like toothbrushes or things like that, but keep in mind they didn't have any time to pack because the Russians don't really want people to get evacuated. So if you have 5 or 10 minutes to flee your home, of course you will fetch the essentials. So do not be surprised when people come here without documents, without toothbrushes and some other ones. Another urgent message from the armed forces. The city cleared the route of evacuation. Some of the obstacles have been removed, but the occupants have not let women and children out. The enemy started shelling again along the evacuation route. Such actions are a manifestation of genocide towards the Ukrainian people, and the enemy will be punished. We're going to have a break until 2 p.m. I will be back with you at 3 p.m. So to finish this part of our live air, just a message from the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine. 12 people were detained on one of the border sections, and the border guards welcomed them with flowers. They were given tulips, so you can see them receiving tulips, and they made photographs of these men. So you can see a different perspective on some of our holidays. I watched this video earlier, and there were a lot of lost faces. I mean, these men ostensibly had no clue where they were going. Well, but I can see a smile on the face of this guy. I guess he liked it. I mean, a tulip, why not? So we will have a 2-hour break, so we can go and have a stroll on the streets of Lviv. Maybe we can find some guys who would love to get some flowers. I'm speaking in jest. We will show several video stories about the current situation in Lviv region, and we will hand it over to our colleagues from Kyiv, the news marathon United News, and then we will be back with you at 2 p.m.
Вже 10-й день Львів живе в режимі воєнного стану. У школах тривають двотижневі канікули. Нині у навчальні заклади поселяють вимушено переселених мешканців міст, які обстрілює ворог. Припинили освітній процес також у львівських дитсадках. По-іншому, в особливий період працюють міські медзаклади. По консультацію до сімейного лікаря медики радять звертатися телефоном. Відвідати лікарський кабінет можна за попереднім записом. У поліклінічних пунктах вакцинації приймають у звичному режимі, однак із незвичним переліком щеплень.
Планова госпіталізація та планова консультація відмінені. Однак, якщо пацієнт має хронічне захворювання і це може призвести до погіршення стану, то, звичайно, що такі пацієнти консультуються, вони госпіталізуються і надаються медична допомога. Ми тільки залишили
getting consultations, we may hospitalize them. We have only vaccination against COVID, all the other vaccinations are regular. We also see reprofiling of cafes and restaurants. Lviv does not smell coffee anymore. Lots of coffee houses are closed. The restaurants do not accept people.
Для обслуговування клієнтів тільки по тій причині, що працюємо для потреб волонтерів, потреб війська. Варимо, значить, в казані їсти більше, ніж для 100 чоловік. От вчора варили Чинахи їм, перечора Бограч. Надіємо, що запрацюємо, звичайно, коли переможемо. А перемога за нами.
Магазини, банки клієнтів приймають, однак приходьте заздалегідь, бо час роботи скорочений. В місті оголошена комендантська година. Скоротили і кількість громадського транспорту. Відтак, на маршруті, до прикладу, 6А замість 8-9 транспортних засобів сьогодні курсує 4. Решта автобусів задіяна в перевезенні дітей. Тетяна Діяк, Юрій Кісь, програма «Очі». Увесь конфіскований товар